yourself?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there?
I'm doing better, but
Still fighting it?
yeah, I actually feel better, overall. Even ran today, not because I want to, but I had to chase something down the street.
A dog?
No.
A kid?
$100 bill.
Oh. Well, that's worth
Just
chasing.
going to deposit and dropped it out of my pocket for one of them. He goes
Way across, yeah.
oh, yeah, Geneva's like a wind tunnel. It's like, oh my God. I had 2 grocery bags in my hand. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I did pretty good. I didn't even think about all the aches and pains that I've been having.
Oh, that's good.
That's
good.
good. Feeling them now.
Yes?
Running.
Yeah, right.
Nice, Happy.
Yeah.
For a moment there, I thought we really had a reprieve from the airport. Thinking yesterday, I was thinking yesterday, I need a jet from this morning.
Yeah, but they're doing some work in one of the runways. But I've seen some difference. I've seen some changes.
Yeah, I noticed it today.
Like we used to have it maybe at 6 o'clock.
Oh, no, that's good.
Yeah.
10, 11 o'clock.
I redistributed.
So we still have some increase.
There was a prop job that flew right over the town.
Oh, yeah. There was FedEx. Some of the FedEx
On
stuff.
the first agenda.
I don't, that's bad.
It's not really working.
That's why I don't want to.
Yeah, so she wants to talk about it as part of our. Yeah, that's fine.
So I got home from my flight today. Got home from my flight
Well, it
today.
seems like it's making some headway.
Car was had a flat tire.
Yes.
It's
It's-
You park your car out
They're
front?
just saying they want to pursue more money.
Okay, so that's different.
So it's different.
Well, we've had flat tires with the car parked in the garage.
Oh, okay, so let them do it. Okay.
So
Did you talk to Dana about that?
ran over a nail at some point or another, yeah, right.
Okay, I can take it up.
And because the tires are so good these days, you don't immediately go down.
Right, it's like
It takes a while, yeah, exactly.
Really?
no,
That's interesting.
Pretty soon you come in.
I'm telling you. But some
no,
people,
it's flat.
if you're smart about what you're doing,
Yes.
But that's one of the things we did in our
kind
old
of
age,
steady around.
become AAA.
Financially
No,
very
you know,
stable
mine's
because a lot of
actually an
services people.
enterprise rental car. So I've got
We're going to
Well,
miss
then
Mel.
they do the same service.
they do everything. But I can't call anything out. So tomorrow morning when I'm officially back to work, I'll call.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've had pretty good luck with AAA.
Yes. No, they're great.
Yeah,
Great service.
they come, and if you're on a freeway, man, they're really good fast.
The kids are one of the fastest growing kids I've ever seen.
We went last week.
I can't believe it. I saw it in a stroller yesterday. Hi there. Truly.
AAA, I just my name. That's it.
Yeah.
Hi there. You know what my name is? Just call me Aunt Peppy.
Aunt Peppy?
Yes.
Can you say hi, Peppy? Nice to meet you.
That's it. That's good. That's better.
This is Mr. Connie. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Dominic. You want to come up here? You want to come up here?
Tomorrow?
Come on up. Come up here.
Yeah, that's right.
He's not shy.
That's good. Yes.
Hi.
And just go to the microphone and say hello.
Sit there.
Here.
Take over.
Yeah.
Here for a day.
Just go.
Inviting my son. He's nice.
Yeah. Just say hello. Say hello.
This is the mayor, Mr. Lentz. He's
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. What's your name? Dominic. Oh,
Tony.
that's a cool name.
He was on a stroller. Tomorrow we're going to see him in his car.
I know, right? And this is Mr. Miller. Can you say nice to meet you? And it's O'Connell. Okay. And this is Miss O'Connell at the end. It's nice to meet you.
Hello, Dominic.
Okay.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, Dominic, if you could go over there with your mom and then join us in the
Let him hit the gavel. Let him hit the gavel. That's what he's going to remember.
All right. So, thank you for joining us tonight. If you can join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call, please.
Please note for the record, all council members are present.
Okay. Do we have an adoption of tonight's agenda?
Move adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is oral communications, and we do have a couple of folks from the community that would like to talk about not so much about the playground, but just the funding of from the Seton Medical Center. So the first person that would like to speak is our school district superintendent, Tony Presta. Come on up.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly ask you to listen to Barbara Longshore, who's got a proposal about, I think it was perhaps about a year and a half ago, Mr. Holstein and Mr. Skills came and had shared with me that there was some money from Seton Medical Center for health in the community, and asked if the school had any ideas on how to integrate the school children with this grant, this money. And so we tossed around a few different ideas, and Ms. Longshore and Ms. Heckerman came up with a really wonderful idea for a PE program. And we submitted it, and then we realized that it kind of, things were moving more slowly than what we had anticipated, and we kind of, frankly, didn't realize that it had moved this far, and we hadn't been coming and talking to you. So we see that you are voting on funding for a playground. I think it's the same money, so we're just asking that you keep in consideration the program that Barbara Longshore is going to be telling you about. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it.
All right, Barbara, you are next. Come on up. And Jolene, too. Sorry, I didn't see both of you on there, so. The tag team.
Thank you, and good evening, council members. So I was just going to provide a little background, a little bit of the impetus for putting this program in place, and we're happy to have this opportunity to be able to share it. It's definitely something we do want to keep alive and someday have at Littman Middle School. The physical fitness and health of today's youth is a nationwide concern. According to a 2008 article published by the American College of Sports Medicine, childhood obesity has tripled to over 15% since 1980 and has become a root disease for children in the United States. Childhood obesity has been linked to additional health concerns such as diabetes, heart disease, and social-emotional issues. As responsible educators, it is one of our priorities to promote healthy living and physical fitness amongst our youth. At the same time, we are committed to educating our youth, and through academic success, enabling them to become responsible and thoughtful citizens. Recent data has shown a strong relationship between physical fitness and academic success. A 2007 study by the University of Illinois examined 259 public schools and found that physical fitness was positively related to academic achievement. This relationship was most prominent between aerobic capacity and achievement in both mathematics and reading. Many other studies have shown the same relationship. At Littman, our goal is to increase the physical fitness and academic achievement of our students through implementation of a sustainable, comprehensive fitness and health program. Our mission is to inform students through lessons and activities about lifelong health, covering key aspects of nutrition and fitness through movement, poise, posture, and breathing. We believe Project Alive will help us achieve this mission. So this was the need for the Project Alive grant that we wrote in the program we'd like to put in place. And Barbara is going to share more about the specific components of the program.
Thank you so much for hearing us this evening. Excuse my voice, I've been fighting something. It's been great. The kids say, don't talk, don't talk.
They won't tell you.
Yeah, they do. Seppi and Clark, I don't know if you remember, but back in November of 2005, I was asked to come and present what the PE program looked like at Lippman. And we put on a PowerPoint presentation sharing the various PE activities, dance classes, and I do want to thank Anya Miller for teaching one of those. I understand she has a desire to come back, so I'm excited that that may happen. We had hiking groups, and we had a great running program. And then at the end, we wanted to show you our students perform some movement to music. And they all got up. We had a group of kids there. And I believe it was Footloose that they danced to and entertained the council. Our program has changed tremendously since then, and that is due to the staff at Lippman is now wearing many, many hats, and we have to fulfill a wide variety of positions and needs. For instance, a language arts teacher or a math teacher, after teaching their kids 4 hours, 2 cores, they'll go out and teach them phys ed. At the present time, we have no formalized phys ed or health program curriculum. Project Alive would provide teachers at Lippman with the needed information, tools, and a lifelong instructional plan. And that's the big deal, is that the teachers this day, and I'm only teaching one PE class myself, is that I was hired 10 years ago to teach mostly PE, and now because of the times, I'm back in the classroom. So the teachers come to me, they go, well, what should I do next? What should I do next? So we're glad, inch by inch, we're teaching them. But they've all said, geez, can you give me a program? Can you give me a program? Well, we found a program that I've collaborated a bunch of ideas, bringing health as well. We're not doing health, which we need to be doing health with them. But Project Alive would allow the teachers to have access to professional development using a year-long pacing guide and incorporate any additional components to health education. We also would implement a program that facilitates family education nights, incorporating healthier choices in eating and movement in their children. We would still like to be considered for any funds that may come to your attention that needs to be used for youth in their health, fitness, and wellness. And with that, there are many of you that weren't here, or some of you that weren't here when the proposal was given out, and I'll leave some with Wendy, or I can give them to you directly. I don't know what the protocol is. But thank you so much for hearing us this evening, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Question?
Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, I do. Projects Alive, what can you explain a little?
Project Alive. In the proposal that we had, there's a phys ed program that is called Spark, and it is actually a standard-based program that has various movement activities for the kids that are put together in a format that it's in a 3-wing binder. So the people can, whoever's teaching it can go, oh, wow, today's Tuesday, let's see what movement that will cover the standards of phys ed. A lot of people don't know that there's standards for phys ed. And one of them is that they need to have 200 minutes of PE a week. The other thing is what we've incorporated in on page 2 is nutrition. We used to do nutrition with them through the Dairy Council. They've got a wonderful program. We haven't had time to do that. The teachers haven't been informed about that program, so we would incorporate that into this binder piece, is that, every year we would take that and the kids would learn that. Another one is posture and balance. Balance is really important at that, and I've got a program that I'm just going to kind of slip in there too to have the kids work on. The worst thing for them is to walk around with these backpacks, so we're trying to educate them. I roll my backpack to school every day, hoping to set a good example, because in a few years their spines are going to be in trouble. So we wanted to talk to them a little bit about the weight of the backpack, compared reference to their own body weight. Some personal goals, of course, in phys ed, just to educate them. A big one we do in our cool down, we do a breathing and movement part that we don't do enough, which is a form of Tai Chi, but it's just basically breathing. With every in-breath, they do a movement with every out-breath. And I've seen it in the day. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when everybody was doing it, you could hear a pin drop, and the kids were quiet, calm, and then they'd go off to their next class. It just kind of centers them, and I think this day and age we all can use a little bit more than that. We do a lot of this brain gym before we test at Littman, and I can see the power of that. I make them stop and I make them breathe before we take any exam. The truth is with sport, too, and there are many examples that we can share with that. We also do this, we used to do Race Across America, where each grade would have a different route, and every mile they'd run, they'd walk across. The grade that won got an ice cream gig. Also, we do presidential physical fitness, which is an interesting one, started with Kennedy back in the 60s. We offer that to the 8th graders. We talked about that before when we were here, and that's something that, I funded for the last few years. I encourage the kids. Times are pretty fast for the mile, but we got to, tighten that up and get them to be, running a little bit. So that, of course, movement through dance steps, which has been gone for quite a few years, and I'd like to bring that back too. So it would be all encompassed in. You'd have to. I have a vision of it, and I see the first place is to start with the Spark program, and then we would incorporate these other pieces into it. So it would be a totally complete, all-around physical fitness awareness program for the youth of America, our little youth here.
So what's today's standard day look like now from a teacher's perspective?
Okay. Let's see. We have 5 different teachers that teach PE. For instance, my thing is I would teach 2 cores. I teach 4 classes, algebra, physical science, and then I would teach 1 class at the end of the day of 6th grade PE. The 8th graders, the gal that teaches that, Mrs. Heckerman teaches it as well. There's usually 2 teachers for 60 kids. So the gal that teaches it also is a core teacher. She also teaches Spanish and ELL. So she's got 5 preps. And the last thing she wants is another prep with PE. Mm-hmm. So I try to give her as much stuff as I can to keep her going. The gentleman that teaches it, he teaches 2 cores of 7th grade, and then he teaches the 7th graders PE. Mm-hmm. And 2 8th graders, so and they're the gal that teaches 6th grade with me. She teaches 2 cores of 6th grade and then teaches PE with me. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of, here you go.
So how would it change if I'm not even sure how much money you needed, but how would it change the program?
Well, we would bring somebody in that would teach all 3 grades.
I see.
We've had that in the past, and we haven't been doing that for the last few years, and that's what you need is consistency. You need consistency, basically, to run a program and to have it tight like that, to cover all these topics. And I've seen it done at Littman. Mm-hmm. You saw it done when we showed you that PowerPoint. It's really proud of the program.
I went there.
Huh?
It was done like that when I went there in the 60s.
Yeah. Well, we do have our award-winning swim program, which I do have to credit whoever is keeping that running, and Miss Liz Nowakowski for running that program. That's one of the best. The kids come up from the swimming pool with nothing but a smile on their face. So that's still in place, and pretty excited that's still running.
It seems like to run a consistent program, you need consistent funding too, right?
Well, once this program's in place, as far as the Sparks goes, all you need is initial training, initial equipment, which is, we talked about that the other night we were here, the boys were saying, it is sad. Mm-hmm. But once the program is in place and everybody's trained, it should be able to run on its own.
Mm-hmm. And you have an idea, dollar-wise, how much this is?
This particular program, we're asking for $45,000. And we're to have a funding program. I know I'm way over my time here, but in honor of the athletes at the Olympic Games this summer, we've broken it down. If you are a gold donor, such and such amount. You'll be a silver donor, such and such amount, and a bronze donor, mm-hmm. donating such and such. And with that, we would put different plaques up on the wall at the Ray Conti gym. Our Project Alive Wall of Stars. So everybody that contributed to this would be recognized, because we appreciate we know the importance of it. We all know the importance of it. Mm-hmm. And the people that helped us with it would be recognized in the gym.
So you have let me understand, I'm just trying to understand it. You have a program a fundraising program, you said? Or?
Well, we're starting that.
You started.
I've addressed a couple of entities. I haven't yet, but we're just starting the ball rolling. And when we knew that this was coming up this evening, we thought that we would address you guys first because you're the one that started us thinking about it last year.
Right.
And when it came to us, man, I ran with it and I said, oh my gosh, yeah, let's do this. And because I knew the need because I was only teaching one last year too, one PE. So it's been sitting dormant, and then we started to bring it up again. I said, well, they're talking about it tonight. Let's just present it again and see if there is any ever funding that may come through that is talking about children's health.
Okay.
This may be something we'd like to implement it by, in the fall, obviously would be the best, but we'll see how the funding goes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for educating us.
Anyone have questions for Barbara?
I think this is more for staff. How often do these funds become available from Seton?
This particular funding source is a one-time funding source, and it would not be repeated unless somebody made an estate sort of donation. Well, there's no anticipation of additional funds.
Okay. Does Seton have a foundation or?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah. Do they accept applications and so forth? How does it work?
That I would have to get you information on. We've been dealing solely with this Brisbane only funding, and I don't know that much about how they do the rest of their business.
Okay.
But we could certainly ask that question.
Yeah, because I'm sort of coming late to this whole decision-making process, and it's my understanding at this point that we have made a decision to, at least that's what I think anyway, to commit the bulk of the funding to the community park upgrade. But it would seem to me that the kind of thing that you're talking about is exactly what Seton ought to be supporting, children's health. And I just thought it might be useful to find out whether they have additional funding available or whether they have some ideas about that. And I know that the representative of Seton was at the chamber luncheon talking about how they want to support the community and so forth. So it's worth a try anyway.
Yeah, we could certainly reach out to them.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Except I think Seton's going to be reaching out to the community.
Yes, they've already started.
Clay, the money that is coming from Seton, that originated from a resident in Brisbane, and he gave that money to Seton. And Seton is just administering that.
Essentially, yes.
That donation.
Correct.
Okay, now it's coming back to Brisbane, but those funds are always there. The goal, the intent was to have that money be used for the community in regards to health.
Correct.
Okay. And Barbara, I just wanted to comment on your talk this evening. And it's so inspirational. I mean, you're such a gem for the community. I mean, you really just have that passion for developing well-rounded children, and you're a fighter, and I know you try and do your best. And so I just want to say that I really admire that. Okay. So we're in the consent calendar part of our agenda. So if there's anyone who wants to speak about something that's not on tonight's agenda, you can come up to the podium.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Did we finish the oral?
Yeah, we're doing oral communications right now.
Okay.
I think that's what I said. Didn't I?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
No, you said consent.
Oh, did I say consent? Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry about that.
Because
You're right.
I have an item.
We're in the oral.
Everybody knew
so.
what you meant.
So, anybody want to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, great. Thank you.
But I have an item under oral communication I'd like to bring up.
Oh, okay, sure.
Can you turn the lights off? It's okay. Can we have the lights on?
Up.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, in the audience, we have a special guest, Mr. Scott Hart, and he's the new representative from PG&E Government Relations. There was another person, Ashley Simpson, that came before us, and he replaced Ashley. And the reason I brought this item is after you do your talk, I'm going to plead for something. So let's go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor.
Don't go, please. School, don't go. Can you wait, please?
Council, thank you. My name is Scott Hart. I am starting my second month with Pacific Gas and Electric Company, replacing Ashley Simpson, being the Northern San Mateo County representative for local governments. And so I look forward to working with all of you. There was an email correspondence that went out, and I have been following up slowly with all of the different cities that I represent, and will be reaching out to you as well as Mr. Holstein to have a little bit of your time, and then also to hear from you on what it is that you would like from PG&E and from me, and how we can build this relationship. And I look forward to getting to know Brisbane and your community, and being your representative with PG&E.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue. I was attending CCAG meeting, and it was one of the worst storm that we had that night. Remember the pouring rain? And sure enough, my car broke in the highway. I had gotten somebody's car to get to my meeting, and I forgot and left the light on. And mind you, I'm coming out, and there is no way I can get home in that rain or whatever. And PG&E came to the rescue and I charged my car, and I got home. But when you mentioned about building relationship, I hope you don't mind. I'm putting you right in the spot. I know you guys are developing budget for community relations. You were here and you heard it firsthand about the need that we have about this project alive. And I think it would be really good if we can get PG&E to help with this project. I think PG&E can and makes commitment to do a lot of stuff in the community. And I don't think PG&E has ever done anything in Brisbane. I think this is the time for you to get right in there.
Well, thank you. I did write it down, and I will take it back to my manager and see what I can try to put together. I will do my best, and you have my word on that.
I know that's why I brought it up, because I think if you want anything done, I believe he's going to be able to do. And something that Brisbane is really good, letter writing and email campaign. If you think it would be, appropriate, we can ask people to send your president, the CEO of PG&E, emails and letters and ask them to help. But you decide. But we're just going to go through that. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Certainly.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Scott, welcome to Brisbane. Check your pockets on the way out.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr.
Scott, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You guys okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming tonight. Okay. All right. Any other oral communications? All right. So consent calendar. Any questions or comments regarding?
Move approval of consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think that is a first since I've been the mayor.
Second, actually.
Do we have?
We did it once before, yeah, right.
I guess because it's I'm still in shock, I think. I forgot. All right. Next on the agenda is old business. Consider authorizing the mayor to execute a lease modification and extension agreement with Silver Spot Nursery School. Staff report, please.
Yes, this is the lease agreement with Silver Spot expires at the end of this month. The Silver Spot preschool came before City Council on February 21st to provide an update to their program at that time. The program has been successful. It has provided a need within the community. The staff prepared a lease extension under the same terms of the previous lease, which is for 5 years. It provides a $310 a month rent, which is currently what the monthly rent is. It also has the tuition or the rent waiver as a provision, As long as that money is used for a tuition assistance program, we receive reports showing that it is. And in fact, that money and more has probably been put towards their tuition assistance program. What's before you tonight is the lease extension. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to respond. And there might be people from Silver Spot who might be able to respond as well.
Okay. Right?
Yeah. I had a couple of questions, but first I should say that I'm really fully in support of what Silver Spot is doing, and it's a great institution, and it serves families and kids, and I think that's really wonderful for the community. But I raised a couple of things when the conversation was held a few weeks ago, and I was hoping that we might be able to get a little more flexibility in the lease to pursue some of these matters, so I'll explain what I mean. First of all, I wanted to just get some clarity on one thing. $310, we're waiving it, but it does seem like a relatively small amount. That was my first cut on it anyway, for a monthly rent. And then I read carefully the lease, and I see that in the lease it says that the tenant, namely the Silver Spot Cooperative, is responsible essentially for all minor repairs, if I read it correctly, which is not something that would normally be the case when you rent something and something breaks, you call the landlord. In this case, that I guess turns out not to be the case, and so I guess one of the things I just wanted to get clear on, because this 310 has been around for a long time, and now we're doing it for 5+ more years. Am I right in assuming that that amount is sort of related to this additional responsibility that the tenant is expected to take on?
I mean, it's related to that, but also the recognition that this is a program that in the past the council has wanted to support and has provided probably what would be considered a below market rate rent for that property. And that was a council decision in the past to do that. And we were just looking at extending it with the current terms, especially because the rent has been waived in the past. Mm-hmm. So, waiving $310, waiving $400 a month provides the same revenue for the city.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have any effect on the city, of course, because it is waived, but the idea is that the rent that is waived goes to specific purposes, and primarily for scholarship purposes for those who maybe have some financial hardships. And so I guess the only thought that crossed my mind was, well, if we had the rent a little bit higher, then there would be more money available for that purpose. And is that a good idea or not? I'm just raising the issue as to...
It might be useful to have Tom explain how the tuition assistance program works.
We have been spending in excess of the 310 pretty much ongoing. Right now it's 669 is what we're spending on tuition assistance. So what you guys are waiving, we didn't find met the need that we had. Mm-hmm. So we actually have done more than that. To the question of the repair stuff, we have put a lot of work actually into the building. I mean, I've got pictures of what it looked like before, and I mean, just things like that. That we got a grant for that little house that's outside, and the whole garden thing, and and besides doing just regular things like putting a new dishwasher in and plumbing, and that kind of stuff, which is an ongoing. Every year we find something that we have to do. So
yeah, no, I understand that, and I really appreciate it. Yeah. And so that's something I think is terrific, and also what you're spending on scholarships is terrific. And I was just thinking, well, maybe we should kind of more recognize that in terms of the larger magnitudes that are involved. That's all. But it wouldn't make any difference other than recognizing the amount that you are putting in and doing in reference to scholarships and improvement to other facilities. That was just my thought.
Right. I mean, my conversations with Tom is they don't see the 310 as the the maximum that they do. They provide the tuition assistance as per their program. Mm-hmm. So if we were to say it was $400, it wouldn't change the way that they did their program. If we said it was $1,000, that they would probably be challenged, given their circumstances, to make $1,000 worth of tuition.
I guess the only thing that I want to speak to, because we are certainly in a long-term lease. I mean, we have a relationship with you. We understand what you're doing and so forth. But this is for 5 years plus. Could be a lot of turnover and so forth, and the same language is in place. So that's kind of what I'm concerned about, having been aware of in the past. Personnel changing, and then the same language is there, and it gets interpreted in different ways. And so maybe it would be nice to say somewhere in the lease that that the amount that Silver Spot dedicates to scholarships is not limited to the $310. It doesn't say that now. It just says that that's what the priority is, and that wouldn't change anything. But it would at least recognize that if the $310 isn't a max.
One of the things that characterizes all of our decisions at Silver Spot is that we're very much a parent-run school.
Right.
So while I'm the director there, I don't make up what the policies or how we function. I consult to a parent board, and the parent board, we come up with proposals that we then present to our membership, and we have extensive discussions and debates on how money gets spent, how this or that policy gets arranged. Basically, by running it, the cooperative very democratically, it reflects the community that we've built at the schools, decision-making.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I appreciate it, and it's great. I just don't want our lease to be a constraint on that process. Somebody going back and reading the lease and say, oh, we only have to do so-and-so, or we're only expected to do so-and-so. Let me give you another example of what I have in mind. See whether you're receptive, and of course, all of this just would be possibility, not mandated. It says in here, for instance, when they're talking about the hours of opening, we talked about this before, and it says the facility shall be open between the hours of 8 and 5, and that kind of sounds like a mandate to me. That's in the lease agreement, and I know that's kind of what you do. On the other hand, suppose, I know that there are some people who would like to be able to bring their kids earlier and leave them later, which is what you're not doing now, but the lease seems to say you couldn't even do that if you wanted to. At least that's how I read it.
Right.
And so what I was hoping for is we give a little more flexibility there. If Silver Spot decides that there are enough parents or others who want to bring kids earlier and they have a facility for, let's say, dropping off at 7:30 for people who go to work at 8, then you can decide to do that, rather than somebody coming to the lease and say, well, it says it's got to be between the hours of 8 and 5. So I'm just looking for a little more flexibility, not to mandate anything, but to leave it open for you all to decide whether you want to do it or not.
I think that's an internal function of how they want to do it, right? I mean,
well, listen to the language here. The facility shall be open on a year-round basis on Monday through Fridays between the hours of 8 and 5, period. That sounds like kind of a mandate.
I don't have a copy of the lease agreement.
But maybe, Mr. Miller,
All we have is a
maybe hours of operation and so forth should not be in the contract.
Well, we can make that argument, but it is in the lease agreement now. And that's kind of what I'm concerned about, that there's some rigidities in here that, we might want to just loosen up a little, that's all. And then you still decide, what all your group wants to do. But it shouldn't be the city.
It's from the
I don't have a copy.
That's from the meeting prior, when they were here a few months ago.
Yeah, okay. But this is the agreement that we're extending for at least 5 years and maybe to renewal. So it seems to me we ought to be a little bit more careful about the language if it has implications that we really don't want to have communicated. That's kind of my point.
I'm flying blind right now, Ray.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? May I ask the attorney, in how many contracts that we sign, we dictate what time a business needs to operate? We don't. Why do we have limitation here, what time it should open, what time they should close?
It was intended always as a floor and not a ceiling, the same for the rent amount. In other words, we wanted to make sure it was open at least during those hours. It does not and was not intended.
That's what I figured too, but that's not what it says.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
We can clarify it if there's any ambiguity, but it certainly was never intended to preclude opening at an earlier hour and remaining open until a later hour, nor was the dollar amount intended as a limit.
Right.
It was intended as a minimum.
Right.
So if there's some language of, it shall be open, not later than, and shall close not later than, or the dollar amount shall be not less than, that language can always be added to the lease.
Those are the kind of things that I would be
We do have
more
hours of
comfortable
operation in there, however, in order to specify that we at least...
So they're open at least certain hours.
At least during those hours.
No, I understand that, yeah. But then we don't want to limit it to that. We should have a little more flexibility, I would think.
How about we just put it at the end of that sentence, at a minimum?
Yes.
Something like that,
Yeah.
Right. Something to that effect. I mean, that's all it really takes is...
Clark, we did have a copy, and then
It should be included with our packet.
I know, we all agreed to it.
We sent it out. I apologize. We did email it out to you earlier today, but we didn't put it in the packet.
Right.
Okay. If there are, do you have other
Should
questions,
have a
Mr.
copy
Mayor?
up here.
Do you want to take a 2-minute recess and we'll make copies for everyone?
If this is the only change that Ray is proposing, then that's okay, but if it's not, then, no, I'd like a copy. I'd like to see, I'm not going to sit
But
here.
I wouldn't mind, Clark,
Okay.
I wouldn't mind if
Okay.
if it's his suggestions, improve the contract. I don't mind making a motion to approve the contract with the suggested revisions. So
I guess the
we can
question,
renew the
have
contract.
Yeah, I only have 3 areas. The one was, 310 shouldn't be a max, and you've already agreed that you're not doing that anyway.
Right.
And the hours, I think we just want to make sure that we're not mandating inflexibility.
Okay.
And then 3, the other thing that we talked about also is that, you have this statement in here about the closures at different times during the year. There are 2 weeks during Christmas break and sometimes during the summer and so forth, which I think is fine for the program. But I think but that becomes a problem for some parents because, what do they do with their kids in those weeks when you're closed? It might be just a possibility that somebody that you would pick might come in and fill in during that time for parents who...
Again, in order to change those things...
It would be up to the parents.
We would go through a process.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It would be
so again,
I don't see that someone comes in and replaces me as the director and then changes those times. They would have to go through the whole process.
Right.
And I'm not even a voting member of the board. It's like I consult the board.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I just want to make sure that when we're passing a lease, we're not putting rigid boundaries around what you can decide.
Right, okay.
That's all.
For that one, the sentence says the facility may be closed.
Right.
So it doesn't require them to close. So that does provide them that discretion.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, I think it does meet your need on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Can I, Mr. Miller, just the schools, for example, close for the winter break, they call it Christmas and so forth. What is that so different than this? Because they need to have a life. They need to have holidays.
No, I think it's fine for the program.
Actually, one of our members was reminding me that we have had these holiday babysitting times, which are organized by the parents, which are times in which we do open up for a day or two during those periods that are closed and have a very truncated program. So, and that's been something that has been popular with our parents and wasn't there originally and was brought as a proposal, and we've been doing that actually.
Yeah, and so all I was looking for was some language that would recognize that. That's all.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Those are the 3 things that
I mean, does the language matter to have it in there? Because that's more of an internal function.
Well, it matters if it's clear that it's okay to do that. Because the way it's written now, it doesn't mandate it, you're right, Stuart, but it sort of implies that that's how it's going to be done. And I don't think we want to be saying that so specifically. If they want to run something in between, that's fine.
Again, we're trying very hard to have a program that empowers parents' decision-making in the process of coming up with how the program is run.
Right.
That is a key part of what we've been doing for 9 years.
And we need to protect the integrity of
Yeah, I like that. I'm in favor of that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Miller, so if I may make a motion.
Oh, I have some questions.
You do?
So, yeah,
Okay.
so if we can hold off on that.
Yes.
Okay, those are the three flexibilities that I kind of like to see in the lease.
But the three, one of them was answered by Stuart that says may, so it still gives the flexibility. But I'm really cautious about making the contracts so specific that we take options from the parents, the board decision.
Right.
May is.
I'm trying to open it
taken.
up. That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Well, I think May would give that. But let's ask Mr. Cliff, go ahead and with your question, maybe
Thanks.
we'd put another.
Right. Well, I think you guys have all been happy up at that site.
Yeah, it's
Things have been going great for all these years, and I don't think there's anybody in the community that thinks any differently.
it's working. Why break it?
Yeah, no, I hear ya. This thing up there. You know, one of the things that I do appreciate that you have done, a couple things. One is you've made the building look better, right? It's more attractive when you go by, and you have that little garden out in front. And this is, you know, I want to bring in staff in regards to this too. I know you guys do a lot of work keeping the grounds in the little tot park looking nice. $310 is a small amount. You know, I mean, personally, I'd rather have it just be zero. It doesn't matter to me. You know, I think what you provide is a great benefit to the community. What I'm trying to get at here is, you know, with our budget, you know, constraints that we're dealing with, you know, every little bit helps. And so, you know, and Clay, if you can chime in on this, having the Silver Spot parents do a little bit more work in keeping that garden area nice. In fact, the whole entire tot lot as one unit, and maybe having a small lawnmower to cut the grass, and you know, maybe plant some flowers out there. Take more ownership of the whole entire space.
Let's put that in
and
the
then
contract.
you know, have that reduce some of the costs that our public works have. You know, that's just one area that they don't have to deal with. You guys are kind of controlling that area. I mean, you already are controlling most of it. You know, why not just do the whole thing? So, Clay, you have any feedback to that? Why maybe that wouldn't be a good idea?
No. If that's a responsibility that they felt that they could take on, would love to work with them. I mean, sometimes, you know, we've made arrangements with in some areas where we provided tools, and the volunteers have, you know, taken on the responsibility to do the work. So that's something we could explore with them, and certainly any amount of public works time that we can leave is to the benefit.
I would be a little bit hesitant to take on.
Sure. I mean, I don't want you to say it right now. Absolutely. No. I mean, you got to talk it over with your board, and then bring it to the full, you know, group of parents.
It's also, that's a public space that's shared by the community, and taking responsibility for something that is not that. The other part, we pretty much also control how it gets used, where we have a little bit of control during the day in terms of the tot lot. And the main tasks that we've taken on have been sweeping on a really regular basis the sand off the sidewalk, and then there's a drainage ditch that doesn't drain. And years ago, I talked to Public Works about whether there was any way to fix that. And actually, when licensing came, one of their hesitancies about licensing us was actually the fact that drainage ditch didn't drain. And one of the things I promised licensing was that we would on a regular basis actually sweep the water into the drain. And so those are the two main tasks that we've done. We did also the shade structure that is up there. We did write a grant for and partnered with the city, and that type of thing. I think that we would continue to be interested in what role we could have vis-a-vis grant writing, whatever, to try to improve the basics, the play structure, essentially. But taking on mowing and stuff like that, I would be. I would have to talk to people, but I would be a little bit hesitant to volunteer that, actually. I mean, if you saw, I mean, one of the things, we have a very long list of jobs and a fairly complex system of trying to get people, you know, what I say on Twitter.
I belonged to a co-op when my kids were little.
Yeah.
I know.
And trying to get everything done at the school with parents who of young children who haven't, I like to say, had a full night's sleep for 2 to 6 years, depending on how many kids they have. It's a challenge.
All right, we'll talk.
Okay.
All right, any questions for?
No, I'm ready to move forward, but Ray, just now that we have this in front of us,
Okay.
I'd like for you to go over it one more time, please.
Sure.
If I could. And,
So
on 4.02,
Yeah.
page 2 of the original lease agreement is the first part you wanted to say, right?
well,
Item A.
the first is on page 2, the waiver of rent, and then where it says tuition that require financial. It's somewhere in there. It should say that that the cooperative may wish to contribute more to scholarship than this amount. That's all.
Which we already do.
Yeah, which you already do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I have in mind, to make it clear that we're not trying to set limits. If you want to do more than that, that's great.
Yeah.
How about the word no less than $310?
Something like that would be fine. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we are setting a limit.
Yeah. And then the second is 402, where it says the hours. I read that before. And there, you can like Hal was saying, you could make it,
No later.
no less than or something like that. So it's clear that if you start a program that involves going half hour earlier and half hour later, you can do so. The city isn't saying you can only be open 8 to 5, which is what it reads to me now. Yeah, I know, Hal, but that's what it sounds like to me.
The facility shall be open minimally.
Yeah, or something
on a
like
year-round basis.
Yeah, right.
Blah blah blah.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Satisfy that?
That would be fine. And then where's the closure part?
It's the next sentence in 402A.
Same paragraph.
It was in the same paragraph.
The facility may be closed for 2-week period of time during Christmas season, spring and summer.
Right, it's right after the hours,
Mhm.
4.02A.
Okay. Yeah, and so I would insert after that is closed, when the Brisbane Elementary School is closed, the cooperative may wish to set up or cooperate with somebody else to establish some kind of interim program during those closures, something like that. May wish to, whatever, that's what you were doing already, right? Okay. Yeah, that would be a way, yeah, right, you could do that too, Grace.
We don't cover the whole time that it's open by any means.
Right.
It's very truncated.
Right, but if you wanted to do something like that, just make a sentence to
Isn't that in your internal bylaws, how you function?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is? Why would we put it in here?
Yeah.
If you just keep it general and say that the the cooperative may elect to continue operations during any of these holiday periods.
Yeah.
That doesn't limit it to the school. It could be a fundraiser.
Could be anything.
Whatever they're doing.
Yeah, right. That, my point is not to limit it, but to open it up.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay. Those are the three that I would like to recommend to my colleagues.
Okay, then I make the motion to approve the contract with the three items that we discussed. And if you want me to read the changes, fine. If not, the attorney knows.
I think Hal has them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So thanks very much.
May I take this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to thank you guys for having such a wonderful, truly wonderful program. We appreciate that and appreciate the parents for all the hard work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will do that.
And I'm sorry I jinxed it, Tom, at the beginning, because I said, oh, it should be easy walking in the door, and I go, oh, I just jinxed it.
And I appreciate you going back to your board and the families to see what you could do to help pitch in, to help the city with its financial needs. So if that's something that you could pull off, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so now we're on to new business. Consider approval of the playground's design, Mothers of Brisbane's fundraising program, funding sources of the community park playground replacement project, and direct staff to put site preparation out to bid. So, staff report, please. Caroline.
Hi, Mayor Lentz and honorable city council members. It was already alluded to that the last time this was before you, it was some time ago, actually June 10th of 2011. And at that meeting, it was suggested that the playground be focused on as the priority project. And so this PowerPoint is going to walk you through what's taken place since that meeting in June 2011. So this slide has by the numbers, the events that have transpired, and since the Parks and Rec, because the playground is in the purview of the Parks and Recreation Commissions, we did meet with them a total of 3 different instances, and at that second meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission, they elected to form a playground subcommittee, which was made up of Commissioners Bologoff and Commissioner Marmion. And we met with that group a total of 3 times. And Commissioners Marmion and Bologoff went on to playground field trips, the 2 of them. And I also visited some playgrounds in the area. They visited 5 in South San Francisco, and I visited some in San Mateo and San Carlos. So a total of 8. And then at the last 2 playground subcommittee meetings, we had the playground designer, Miracle Play Systems, join us so that they could start designing the characteristics of the playground that were being shared at these subcommittee meetings. And what helped a lot was the surveys that were conducted by the Mothers of Brisbane last year, and one was conducted with their membership of 250 members and another one with the Brisbane School District. And they got back from the first survey 58 responses and 38 from the second one. And I'll talk about some of the key elements that came forth in those surveys when we show the design. We also, staff met with the Seaton Vice President of Development and also a board member on April 5th to go over the Parks and Rec Commission approved playground, which they did at that 3rd meeting in March 14th. And the Seaton meeting went well, where they gave their thumbs up and wanted to hear back from staff after approval of the project by the City Council. And the last thing on there is one design that was created by the different stakeholders, and they were all very pleased with it. But before I show the play structure, just point out a couple things from the survey where they wanted to see 2 age-appropriate structures, and I've learned a lot about playgrounds during this project, but they're grouped in 2 main areas, 2 to 5, or like a tot structure, and 5 to 12 for the bigger kids. And the concern with this current structure was that the big kids and the little kids run into each other on the drawbridge mostly, and kids get hurt. And another big thing that came out through the surveys was swings, which currently don't exist because of space issues. And there was a 50-50 split on sand versus no sand. Some parents really loved it and some didn't. But those who did love it wanted to see a water element so that there could be sand and water play. And something that the city engineer did suggest was that if there's going to be a water element, please don't have it near the existing water fountains, because he wanted it to be very clear that this is dedicated for the kids to use and to not keep bringing the sand buckets over to the water fountains and clogging them. It's a maintenance issue that he's seen recurring. And another thing was that they love the spiral slide. So here's the design. And as you can see, it's got 2 phases. The first phase being the existing play box area, and the second phase being on the current grassy area across from the cement walkway, with a 3-bay swing set, one for babies and one like regular, 2 regular swings and 2 therapeutic swings. Just to get you oriented, additionally, the existing restroom facility is to the right of the play box, and the water spigot, as was mentioned earlier, is on the far end of the restroom facility side. So it's very clear that's meant for the sand buckets. Also, the surfacing, you can see that there is mostly poured-in-place rubber surfacing with the stars design, because we're the city of stars, but there's also about a little less than a quarter of the play box area dedicated for sand. And it's not very prevalent from the photo because it was difficult for them to show, they said, but there is a lip in the poured-in-place rubber so that the sand area kind of dips down so that the sand is able to be better contained to where it's supposed to be. And the boulder that's straddling the border of the sand and poured-in-place, it would be situated so as to accommodate the depth of the sand, and also the side of the tot structure that goes into the sand. That would also be accommodated to take into account the change in the surfacing. What else? The signage that you see would show the age appropriateness of the 2 structures, so that it's clear that that smaller structure is for the 2 to 5s and the other one is for the 5 to 12s. And something that we're going to get into more in a couple slides is in phase 2, there's a seat wall, which is 72 linear feet, and that is being suggested as the donor wall, as the Mothers of Brisbane have a fundraising strategy to sell stars, gold stars, that would be applied to both sides of that seating wall. So the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission, again, was to approve both phases, 1 and 2, mostly due to the cost savings of approving the 2 phases together. That does create a $26,000 gap in the existing funding, which is $209,000 roughly. And the $26,000 was going to be filled by $9,000 with the Brisbane Lions Club doing the demolition and off-haul of the current play equipment, saving $9,000, and the Mothers of Brisbane fundraising with the Gold Stars, approximately $17,000. And this would be what they would look like. They're made out of a 2-ply Lamicoid, which is just the brand of the plastic. So it's got one layer of the gold and one layer of black, so that when it's engraved, the black shows through. And again, it's featured on both sides of the wall. The bottom star different scenarios. We wanted to just play around and see what were the maximum number of stars that we could sell, given that there's varying sizes, and they're priced differently too. So the two first 36-inch sections, which is 1/24th of the wall length, one side of the wall, you can see would fit 2 larger stars and 3 smaller stars, and 1 larger star and 5 smaller stars. So given the different metrics that were calculated, the Mothers of Brisbane have a target to sell 72 of the larger stars and 196 of the smaller stars. And the larger stars would be sold to businesses and nonprofit corporations or nonprofit organizations, and the smaller stars would be sold to families and individuals. What else? For the funding sources, there's 3 different areas of funding for the project that add up to $209,000. And you can see it's between the bulk of it is $160,000 from Seton Medical Center Foundation, and $23,000 from the state recycling grant, and $25,000 roughly from dedicated park and lieu fees. So I wanted to give a breakdown of, given we have received a engineer's estimate from the contractor, Miracle Play Systems, that the estimated total cost of the project would be $231,000, but given the cost of the stars, we upped it to $4,000. But there is also a contract that they have submitted to us that covers the cost of equipment, freight, installation, and certified playground safety inspector inspection. And this contract would be able to be bid out through California Multiple Award Schedule, which is a contract with the state. It's a state-run program, and Miracle Play Systems, under the name Miracle Recreation Equipment, has a contract under CMAS, and they pay a small fee to hold this contract. So what happens is that they're able to offer a discount if we're able to purchase through CMAS, and a couple other agencies have done this with their playground equipment that I've spoken to. And the use of these contracts is totally optional and is available only to California state and local government agencies. And so it saves staff and mostly staff time, where you don't have to go out to bid, but you're allowing the state-run contract to do that for you, which all of the equipment that they have on a schedule under CMAS has been federally awarded already. So they're using that base contract as their CMAS contract. And this is something that we've talked internally with the city attorney and the city engineer. It's kind of a new way of purchasing equipment, but it is something that is allowable. And so that's that $153,000 that we know that cost is not going to change. And we did estimate the cost of the donor stars to be $4,000, with an average cost of the stars being $20, and just being conservative, the Mothers of Brisbane selling 200 stars. And with the Lions in-kind donation of $9,000 brings the estimated bid award for site preparation, which would include getting the decomposed granite and the sand in place, and building the seat wall. These are items that can be informally bid out by the Public Works Department. And so the city engineer is working with Miracle Play Systems to get that bid packet together so that the city can bid that out to at least a few local contractors as well as 3 certified Miracle installers. And that bid would be awarded by the city engineer. And anyways, that is what we're estimating the bid award for site prep to cost. So as I mentioned, the request for proposals for site prep would be those items and would be bid out to local contractors and those 3 certified Miracle installers. Oh, and they would also be placing the gold stars on the seat wall. So for the bid packet, the city engineer is going to specify a range of 144 stars to 200 stars as something that the contractor can put a price to and submit with his proposal. So as far as next steps, after today, if the City Council decides to approve the design and also approve for staff to bid out the project and for the Mothers of Brisbane to continue their fundraising to the efforts of closing that gap in funding and using the funding sources that were detailed on the playground replacement project, then staff would work with the Lions to determine when they would be available in July to start the demolition. The Parks and Recreation Director has indicated that he would like to hold off any fencing of the area in the park and demolition to be after the 4th of July holiday. And that was a discussion that the subcommittee had at their last meeting. So given that 4th of July is on a Wednesday, we'd want to wait until the weekend after 4th of July. And also we have a Kaboom grant that we're going to hear back from on June 4th. And that would be, if we're awarded, a $20,000 construction grant. And
how likely that is?
Excuse me?
Do you know how likely that is that they will approve it?
Well, they're doing a lot of talking about Brisbane and Kaboom's headquarters right now. They had a mini contest to see how many likes a city could get on their photos. So we were designated as the Playful City USA community, and you have to have that designation in order to get the grant. And 213 communities got that designation, and there's 25 $20,000 grants. So about a sixth of a chance. But we did get second place in that number of likes contest that ended on Friday at midnight. And a member of the Mothers of Brisbane has been working with Kaboom's Playful or Map of Play division to rate play spaces in the area. So that helps them determine which playgrounds in the area really do need funding from them. And she's actually going to be featured in their next newsletter. So I know they're doing a lot of talking about Brisbane, and they're really impressed with how we were able to get nearly as many likes as a city that's 4 times our size. So they're going to still send us a box of goodies, Playful City USA t-shirts and other promotional items. And we're going to also be sent a couple street signs to put up if we would like. So I'm hopeful about it. But even if we don't get it, the Mothers of Brisbane have for their cutoff for fundraising July 1st, and they have made a lot of efforts to reach out to businesses and nonprofit organizations, and they have a lot of already verbal commitments for orders for stars, which they can probably speak to more later. And after hearing about hopefully the gap in funding being closed by 1 or 2 of those items, then the city engineer recommended that we purchase the equipment or sign that CMAS contract, which would get the ball rolling on ordering the equipment, which would take 7 weeks to arrive. But in that 7 weeks, we can have the Lions maybe over a few weekends, since they can only work on weekends, and after working hours. But it's estimated that it would take 2 days from the contractor. They said, or from Miracle Play Systems, they estimated that the work to be done that the Lions would be doing would take 2 days, so we're estimating maybe 2 to 3 weekends. And also for the contractor that's awarded to do his work, and then the equipment would be arriving at the time that they're ready to do their installation, projected at middle of August timeframe. And it takes a little over a month for the equipment to be fully installed and for the safety inspector to do their inspection, so estimating by mid-September to have the playground completed. And it does come right in the middle of concerts in the park, or towards the latter half of concerts in the park, but there's a lot of things to consider, and there's no way to really move it out too far into what would then get into Day in the Park, first weekend of October, and that's definitely a day that should be, the park should be not fenced and open. So I think that's the rest, that wraps up my presentation. If the City Council has any questions, I'd love to take them. And there's plenty of people in the audience who'd probably love to speak as well.
Questions from the council? Tara?
Where is Miracle Play Systems located?
Well, the person I've been dealing with is located in Belmont. He is the regional sales representative, but as far as the headquarters are concerned, I believe it was Missouri.
And there was no local play structure manufacturers or state of California manufacturers?
They're the most local that I've been dealing with. When we first started meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission, we brought a few different play structure companies before or to them. And yes, one was up towards Sacramento. And that was for their sales representative too. Another one was in San Diego. So they're trying to get people in California, but Miracle seemed to be the most responsive and also the most close. And as far as any repairs are concerned, they have a lot of playgrounds that they've done in the area, like in South San Francisco, Orange Park. And so it's no problem for them to have one of their maintenance workers come and like patch up like the rubber surfacing, which is the most common repair that they do.
And their contractors that are Miracle Play approved contractors are again brought in from other areas, or?
Yeah, I haven't asked them where the 3 certified installers come from, but I can.
And the other question I have is, if we use a non-certified installer, does that mean we don't have their warranty or guarantee, so it's more difficult for us to be able to award this to a non-local contractor?
Right. For the play equipment itself, it needs to be installed by certified Miracle installers. But as for the site preparation, that doesn't need to be done by them. So it's 2 separate contracts.
So we are locked into using, in theory, we're locked into using their installer for the actual installation.
Right.
And the committees that have met on this, the subcommittees, have all agreed that they think that this is the best equipment we can get, or the most suited equipment for our area? Or has that been a gray area?
We've talked mostly about colors and materials were talked to us from Miracle's point of view. And of course, the pine that they use is superior to what we have out there, and how it won't splinter and have the same problems that we currently are experiencing. But it also has to have recycled plastic so that we can use the grant from the state.
Yes.
And so that does pass. And I've talked to the state grants manager to make sure. And also they are a Kaboom preferred vendor, which is another reason why we stuck with them, because Kaboom has certain vendors that you have to choose from if you get a grant from them. So in the beginning, we wanted to make sure that the person we're working with was on that list.
So there's restrictions in getting some of the funding and the installation on who we can use and how it's going to be installed.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Zoe?
First of all, I'm delighted that this is here tonight. I know this has gone through, what, is this almost 2.5 years? 2 years? 4 years? Has it been that long? I know Jessica was pregnant, I think, with the first child. But the other thing is I'm very happy to see Scott still here. We have another opportunity for you. PG&E, I mean, I'm just banking on PG&E. I'm sorry. But I'm delighted that it's here, and I'm happy that he said the money, the Miracle Playground estimate is not going to be changed, because the budget on this being so tight, we have absolutely no room for change order. This is definitely given. Now, is Lori still here? No, she's not here. I wondered the law firm that she's working with, if they're going to make any contribution. I think that's a great opportunity to hit them for money.
I think she's on furlough now.
I know this. But if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I do have some.
Okay.
I guess Ray and Clark, you were on the subcommittee. So we have Miracle Play Structure as the chosen company to do the play structure. Did you guys look at other play structure companies and styles? I mean, how did you come up with this particular look?
We were taking the recommendation from the PBNR. Mostly what we focused on was with the Mothers of Brisbane on the star wall. So, you know, we're going specifically by our commission vetting that out. And so we were just more concerned on how the stars were going to work, and that the mob, so to speak, Mothers of Brisbane, were going to do their fundraiser and the mechanics of all that. And that's where we focused our attention.
Okay.
You know, we looked at the details, but we, as a subcommittee, accepted the recommendation from our PBNR.
So, I mean, just to give you an idea, the Parks and Recreation Commission, when they were looking at it, as Caroline said, they looked at different play areas with different manufacturers. They also looked at different manufacturers and what they offered. And the determination from the Parks and Recreation Commission was that Miracle provided the best fit for our community between color, structure, and variety of play equipment. So this process of looking at other play equipment manufacturers was done by the Parks and Recreation Commission prior to bringing it forward as a recommendation to the Facilities Committee and to the City Council.
Okay, and Caroline, you said that Kaboom has a list of different approved manufacturers that they use. Did you see some of the other play structures that are on that approved list, and did they look different to this particular style?
Yeah, one of them is called Game Time. We brought that to the Parks and Recreation Commission. It's more like steel or powder coated steel, less of the wood. Some of them, like Kaboom, sometimes can be really thought of as having too much plastic and bright colors in their structures. Mm-hmm. And so that was another type of design that we showed to the commission.
To the full commission, or just to the subcommittee?
To the full commission.
To the full commission, okay.
Yeah, and so they liked Miracle, and they did make an effort to just be here for the meeting and to answer the questions that came up, all the technical aspects of playgrounds and safety standards.
Okay. All right. I know, a ton of energy has gone into this, and I'm completely supportive of putting that money towards the park. Having 2 children of my own, and now, of course, I'm at the tail end of using a play structure. But I just can't. I'm just going to say it. When I look at this play structure, to me it seems outdated. To me, it's not artistic. And maybe I'm at the end of maybe I should have made those comments earlier. But I didn't see any of this. I'm only seeing it tonight. But when I see other play structures, the newer ones that are going in, they just have a different look. They seem more current. This seems like South City. Now maybe that's okay, and maybe having a more a structure, a play area that looks like Brisbane, right? And you drive through and you say, yeah, okay, I know that playground. That's Brisbane's playground. Well, look at this one. This could be a playground anywhere. But you also have the budget that you're working with. And, of course, I also don't want to step on anyone's toes. Maybe I kind of already did that by making my comments known here on the dais. But I'm just going to throw that out there. And just kind of, maybe get some feedback from all of you. Maybe if you think, like, hey, don't worry about it, Cliff. It's fine. It is better.
The Parks and Recreation Commission went through a number of these kinds of conversations. So one of the things they wanted to make sure was that there was a climbing wall that was there. They wanted to make sure that they had this slide that provided a little bit longer of an opportunity. They wanted to make sure it was separated physically between the 2.5 and 5-year-olds and the 5 and 12. As we get through those kinds of issues, we start limiting our choices.
Sure.
They also looked at different color schemes. A lot of the play structures have oranges and yellows and blues and castles. Those are some of the things that might make it unique, but the Parks and Recreation Commission said, we would like to stay more of a natural look, which is why they went with the greens and the browns to try and keep it looking more natural and more in harmony with our community and with the mountain. The manufacturer suggested, using the blues and the stars, which is a very Brisbane
we do have that element.
Look. So the other things that were important were having the stepping areas so that the way the kids would have an opportunity to sit. And the big one from the parents is the swings. And we worked very hard to make sure that there would be swings that are there, and the swings that are being provided are for children of all ages and all abilities. And that takes up a lot of space. So trying to fit everything else in within the space provided limits the types of opportunities that you have. But these are the conversations that the Parks and Recreation Commission went through in their meetings, and the subcommittee went through, and the Mothers of Brisbane went through, and the meetings were very good. The Mothers of Brisbane, have gone to more playgrounds as a whole than I ever did when I was a parent. But I, as you, have gone to a number of playgrounds, and there are certain elements that are very important to the Mothers of Brisbane. And having worked with them, this playground hits those elements that are important. This gives the children the opportunity to have the tactile experience with sand, which a number of parents feel very important, while at the same time not making sand the only medium to work with. Because there's a number of parents in our town who would say that sand is not what they want their children to be. So, this may not be the playground that any one person would choose, but it is a playground that I think, I can't speak for the Mothers of Brisbane, but the Mothers of Brisbane agree on, and I think we can see that by the fact that they're willing to raise somewhere between $17,000 and $20,000 to make this playground work. And I think that's very telling to say that this, is a playground that is a community playground. It is for the community, and it's one that the community is eagerly looking forward to use. So, I think all those things would put us, if we were to say, let's try and redesign it at this point, would put us at a distinct disadvantage.
Another 5 years. I believe Jessica's kids would be graduating from high school.
No, sure. Yeah. And I'm just like putting that out there. I mean, again, this is the first time I've seen it, and I'll let you guys get on out there because I do want to get your feedback. Definitely. Before we approve this. Yes. I hear you. I hear it.
Without getting further in
I had a
trouble.
feeling that's how it eventually came about, for sure. But, I do have one more question for you guys, and that is that seat wall. So were you thinking of perhaps maybe backfilling it and having the grass come up to that instead of leaving it kind of this hurdle that is there before?
No. There's going to be a 4-foot decomposed granite border along the seat wall so that there is a separation between the grass and the actual wall. That came up during a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting.
Okay, yeah, because it didn't look like it was in...
Yeah, it's in the...
So back here.
Yeah, it would be on the back side.
Yeah.
The contractors, it's in the bid packet that would go out since they have to construct it.
All right, and so just like having the grass slope up, that...
It would be like, would they be like providing a warning track?
For the...
No, I mean, if you had the grass right next to it, children, as they were running in the park, would not feel the difference, and therefore accidents falling over the seat wall. The seat wall is 1.5 feet high. So, I mean, you're right, it could be considered a hurdle, but if you don't provide some kind of physical barrier between the grass and the seat wall, you would probably have many more children not realizing they were coming up to the seat wall. Okay. Kind of like you wouldn't want to put grass all the way out to the outfield fence in a stadium. So that was the rationale.
Yeah.
And the seat wall, is that to protect children from walking into the swing area and getting smacked?
Yep. Right. That is exactly what we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah, as you know, I work with schools. Playground is one of the most sensitive facility in any city, school, county operation. There are a lot of restrictions, and this company that is providing this, it's certified, and we're piggybacking actually on the California government. So it really reduces the cost. If we had to do this without piggybacking on California Gov contract,
it's hard to say. I mean, the reason you go with something like CMAS is this is a statewide bid, so this is you are trying to do the best you can in getting the power of economies of scale. If each individual city was to bid out equipment like this on its own, then the manufacturer would be in the commanding seat. Whereas by having the state bid it out statewide, you're getting economies of scale. You're getting manufacturers that are going to give you the lowest price they can because they would like to be on that list.
Right. And the thing that I noticed about this, again, some of the people that I know that have worked with this, they're definitely very sophisticated and very selective. For them to have allowed this, really, when I looked at this, I don't have kids, but I would go adopt kids to just take them to this playground.
No, I'm sure. I'm not saying that it's not,
I really like it. It has the stars, and I'm for it. And again...
So we have any more questions for staff before I open up to the community, if any of the folks in the audience would like to speak? Okay, so are there any mothers that would like to talk, or are you guys just all fully cool?
So my motion stands. Yeah,
Okay.
we want approval for this.
All right, so do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait, are we going to open it to public discussion?
I just did, but they
didn't.
none of them wanted to
The contract is big. Yeah, the contract is processing. But I want to also thank the subcommittee, Miller and Conway. Thank you very much, because before the new council, we had other people.
Actually, before we have a motion, I mean, there's talk amongst ourselves. I mean, are there things in here that you want to you have concerns about. I mean,
Well, I just wanted to acknowledge, Barbara's presentation earlier about her school program, and that, as Ray indicated, that, we're pretty much probably going to move forward with this, even though it hasn't been approved yet. But you kind of educated us, or at least educated me, on the program that you wanted to do on at Littman in regards to physical education. I think this ties into it, but you were talking about this wall of stars, and what I'd like to do is connect you with the Mothers of Brisbane, whom you probably know most of them anyway, because or at least the ones that have older children, and maybe piggyback onto the program that they're going to be presenting on selling these stars on the seat wall. Because I think that probably a lot of people would like to participate in that, and I kind of think that it's probably going to fill up fast. So with that, is a way, without holding up the gentleman from PG&E for the whole
I know, poor guy. His pocket, he's going.
45,000.
Don't worry.
This might be a way to kind of bridge over too, and kind of start it as a community effort, and I kind of see some momentum going there, and that's what I'd like to say from that aspect.
all right, so we do have someone from the community who wants to speak.
Literally cannot help myself. I'm Jennifer Bousquet, and I live on Sierra Point Road in Brisbane. I have 2 children, and I'm the fundraising chair for the Mothers of Brisbane. And this is like such a good moment. This has been such a long conversation that we've been having for 5 years now. So it's really wonderful to see this project come to fruition. And I want to thank you for the careful consideration that you've all given this. And I don't want you to think of it as you're building a play structure. You know what you're doing? You're putting the heart in our downtown. We have that lovely farmer's market. We have that terrible playground. I don't even really like my kids playing on it because it's hazardous. And this is going to revitalize the downtown. It's going to look wonderful, and hopefully we'll, get more activity over in the mall across the street. It's just really going to bring a lot of life and vigor to our town, and I think our citizens are going to be excited to see something new and completed. And I saw on the timeline that it's scheduled to be complete by mid-September, so you might think about a ribbon cutting at Day in the Park and make everybody feel like this is their park, this is their playground. In terms of the fundraising, I'd like to say that if Kaboom comes in, right now Carolina has it projected that we need to bring in 17K, it's 1,000. If Kaboom comes in at 20, that leaves you with a so-called surplus of 3, right? We already have raised 10, that's 13. We're anticipating, our goal, which Carolyn and I keep going back and forth, it depends on how we size the stars and how many we can fit on the wall. We're looking at, we have another meeting tomorrow where we're going to be asking for 5,000. So what I'm saying to you is whatever money that we can bring in, especially if Kaboom comes in, then you may not have to use all that Seton money. You might end up with 20,000 left in the Seton fund or something that you can allocate to other community projects such as the physical education program or whatever you decide is important. So we're going to do our part. We're behind this. We're not just coming here with our hand out. We're willing to work hard, and I'm going to be probably annoying everyone in town asking if they want to buy a star on the wall. So I really urge you to approve this project tonight, and thank you very, very much for all the time and energy that you've all put into it. And also Bonnie Bologoff and Raina Marmion on the subcommittee. That was helpful. And Caroline has been a trooper. She responds to every email that I write her within 30 seconds. So thank you, Caroline. And Clay and Stuart.
All right. Jessica?
Thanks. Sorry, we can't just sit there and not say our part. I think I can speak for all of our members here tonight to say that we're so thrilled and excited to finally be before you with this, commission-approved project in front of you. And it's something that it actually started when I was pregnant with Violet, who's 5. Back in 2006, early 2007, there was a series of workshops that Jim Skeels held at the community center, and we first started envisioning what a new playground would look like at the community park. So it's really been 5 years, and then coming back to you last year to kind of get the project rolling again after the worst of the recession looked like it was starting to lift, and the Seton money was newly kind of reinvigorated and available, so we're ready to start up again. And we're just really, really thrilled to be here. So thank you for your vision. Everybody who's been involved in this has been amazing. Really just going through the nuts and bolts of what needs to happen, going through the correct process and procedures, and at the same time keeping this kind of big vision of what we can do there at the heart of our town, like Jennifer said. And I know you've heard about other worthy projects, and there are many out there. I can think of a couple now that I wish we had more money to do as well. But this is the big project that the political will is here, the money is here, the time and effort has been put into place, and the grassroots commitment is here. And so now it really is the time to do it, and then to move on to the next project. And we will be there for the next one too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah.
Also, at the beginning of our subcommittee meeting, we also had former Mayor Michael Barnes come in and raise a concern about the skate park, which he has before, and wanted to see $50,000 go towards that, and that's probably something from a fundraising activity to kind of keep on the radar, because keep our skateboarders active and revitalize the park. So there's the skateboard park. So there's that aspect of it too.
Right. Right.
I'm ready to move, and I guess taking your cue to you is, Cliff, don't worry about it.
But I wanted to add something to what Conway just talked about. We started this, as you said, in 2005. The original subcommittee, I was part of that. There were 3 projects. The playground, Barbara's Healthy Project Alive, and also the skate park. When we were really looking at which one to narrow it down to, we were looking which one serves the biggest number, the largest number.
For the community.
Correct. Definitely, this was the one that we didn't have anything for the kids. We needed to have that, and I really would hopefully that we can work with some large companies or other companies to be able to come up with some money for Barbara or skate park. This is not the end of our projects at this city. This is just the beginning, and I know all of us are committed to that. And again, I'm still going to continue saying I'm ready to make the motion to approve this.
You already did.
I know, but I'm so excited about this. Don't be surprised if I come and pick up your kids and say, I want to go to the playground.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say I think this is a great project, and I'm pleased we're moving ahead on it finally. But I did want to thank those people who have really been tenacious in sticking with this all these years. And that includes the Parks and Recreation Commission, and certainly all the mothers of Brisbane who've really made all this happen. So the thanks should go out in that direction as well.
Karen?
I'm glad to see the project moving forward. I do wish that it wasn't going to be 3 months of our summer during construction and affect the current uses in the park probably to a high degree during our heavy summer season. But
we actually discussed that too.
That would be the only caveat I would have, is that it would be nicer to be able to get it done in a shorter time with less disruption to current uses in the park, because this will be a big imposition during construction phase to the current uses. And I assume that there's weather constraints on building it. Not that we necessarily get a winter or winter rains, but
certainly that's one of the things, Terry. I mean, because we did discuss it, and of course Ray and I consulted with the mothers of Brisbane, and they said, see, after having gone on for 5 years, just get it done as soon as possible. If it's approved, then they want to get rid of the old play structure, and we said, okay, we'll just deal with it.
But as soon as that starts, it's going to be
7 weeks.
And it's going to be, great. I'm assuming some sort of grading for the walls, and
there'll be a fenced-off area that is going to be closed to everybody. So it's going to be some protections that are put there, just as any construction zone would. But, there's not going to be D9 caterpillars sitting out there or anything like that. You know what I mean? The kids can climb on or
Well, that would make a good play structure as a temporary play structure.
Until they fall.
Yeah.
So, as Parks and Recreation, there are two people who have rented the park in July. We are notifying both of them about the potential construction period. Also, we only rent the park 3 months ahead of time, so anybody who's going to be renting the park from this point forward will be informed that the play structure and a small portion of the grass will not be available to them. So, as Parks and Recreation, we are aware of what's going on, and we are taking the necessary precautions.
Great, thank you.
All right.
So we have a motion.
So, let me just you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Okay, so, yeah, again, I just wanted to emphasize what Ray had said. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be in this position today. It really was a community-driven effort, to get something done. And, sometimes that's what you need. Usually things get happen when there's a deadline or, things you have to do. And granted, our play structure is old and it needs to be replaced, but sometimes you put a Band-Aid here and a Band-Aid there, and it keeps going on and on and on. And you guys drew the line in the sand and said, no, let's do it right. And you presented a great case to get all the money, not to divvy it up. And I think in the end, the money will be well spent, and the community will love it, and it'll be a great focal point for the overall community. So thank you so much for your efforts, and also the subcommittee, and also the Park and Rec Commission working hard on working with the community to have this vision come forward. So we have a motion, and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Construction's going to be very entertaining for lots of people.
Very, very rarely are we cheered.
There you go. We really should be standing up for you guys.
Yes.
I'm always pleased when we get members of the community out, and I say that it has to be about kids or dogs to get people out to our meetings. So it's good to see you and all the children that came with you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. So next on the agenda, item B, consider approving the refunding plan of the 2002 utility bonds. Staff report, please.
Now for something scintillating.
Oh, yeah. And since we've been talking about ways to save money, the staff has been looking at all ways to save money, and one of the ways is by refinancing the utility bonds. In 2001, we did a master water and sewer plan, and then we found out just how much we had to do. We got some funding for federal grants, but we had to have matching money for it. So we issued in September of 2002, $4,450,000 of revenue bonds to finance the water and sewer systems. With that money, we did the matching grants for the Valley Drive lift station, the Lake Street booster pump, and the New Glen Park tank, plus a few other items that were there. We now have the opportunity to lock into a 4% annual rate for the next 14 years, well, to the end of the bonds, for a total savings of $247,000, which is about $12,000 a year, which is what will impact our water and sewer fees, because we still have hetchy raises coming at us. So every little bit that we can save is a help to us. So what we're looking for tonight is your approval to go forward with this refunding, and to contact the financial advisor and telling him it's okay to go forward with it. He has looked into and done some research and found that a private issue would
probably get us a better deal than a public offering.
Hmm.
And that's where we're at.
All right. Staff, questions for staff? Ray?
Yeah, well, I'll go first if no.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
Yeah. Just a couple of clarifications. Would you explain that last statement that you made? It's better to do it privately rather than publicly. What do you mean by that?
Well, brokers, financial advisors and brokers can go out and broker a deal with individuals directly, or they can offer it through a number of brokers where they put it out on the market. So it's kind of like someone offering you a loan or an investment privately one-on-one, or taking the money and going out and asking a whole group of people. And Stuart wants to jump in.
Of course, I always do. You know that. So if we were to go out for a public bid for this, we would need an official statement that everybody who's bidding publicly would read. That would cost us $5,000. We would need a rating from S&P or Moody's or Fitch, and that would cost us a few $1,000s. So instead of looking at that, what we will be doing is going and asking a number of private placement people, investment firms, to give us a proposal, because they will be more intimately familiar with the deal than a general bid out to the public. We would be able to have meetings specifically with these people to make sure that they're comfortable with our finances. So that will save us some upfront costs in the refinancing. We would not take a proposal from an investment firm that is not market competitive. There are so many other public bids out there that we know what the current rate would be if we went out publicly. We wouldn't be looking to take a rate that is outside of the competitive norm. So for those reasons, it makes more sense for us to do a private placement. Also, one of the things that we have struggled with over the years is raising rates year after year. So when you're going out for a public issue, those kinds of questions tend to scare off investors, whereas we would be able to have more of a personal contact with a private placement and be able to explain to them what the situation is, what our unique situation has been over the past few years, what we're doing to ensure that we're not having coverage issues in the future. How we last year adopted an ordinance that allows us to do more of the automatic pass-throughs. So we can tell, in a private placement, you're better able to tell your story one-on-one than in a public placement where you're going out to just a market bid. So for those reasons.
Okay, that's a good answer. Second question. You're talking about getting 4%, or that seems to be the likely interest rate. For how many years now? This is how many year these bonds run?
11.46.
They currently run through 2031.
Okay, so
it'll be a 19-year.
So they all run that long?
They run a variety of years. I mean,
I was kind of trying to get an average of, that's what I've sort of.
Right. I mean, we have, I'd have to go back and look at the current bond issue to see what the duration is outstanding. Because we have bonds coming due every year.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was just thinking that, I don't know what the average is. That's what I was trying to get at. But if all the bonds were to 31, then I could, 4%, that's good. But if the average is, half of that, and couldn't we do better than 4%? I guess is my question.
What we're coming into is 4% every year. What we're giving up is ones that are over 4% and going up to 5%.
Right.
Throughout for the next 19 years.
So is there any prospect we can do any better than that? I guess
there is a prospect. I mean, I understand what you're saying. So right now, since we are refunding bonds from 2002, we're now refunding the 10 to 20 year bonds. These 10 to 20 year bonds have 4 to 5% coupons. So you're right. What we would be looking at through this private placement is seeing what we can do on the front end. Maybe we through a private placement, you can also work to getting a better structure for yourself. So we might look to say if the interest rates are better short term, that we can afford to pay off more short term. Maybe we do that and then have less on the long term, but also recognizing what the investment firm needs for their investors, so what they can actually sell. I mean, they may have difficulty selling one-year bonds at 0.1%, which is probably what you get nowadays. Right. So they may ask us to put more on the back end, but even if we put more on the back end, that 4% savings, doing more at the 4% on the back end would still save us money. And if it doesn't, we would not take the next step.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Just one more question.
Right.
On the table, there's an item there, estimated neg pos arbitrage. Would you be so kind as to explain that?
I had the same question.
I know what all those words mean separately. So arbitrage is the amount of money that you can make legally when you sell your bonds at one rate and then can invest at another rate. So what this would be telling me is that we're, part of this is we're anticipating a positive arbitrage of $34,000. But that's just knowing what the words mean separately. What I can do is get council a better definition of this. Since tonight all you're doing is providing us the guidance to move forward, I can get you that tomorrow, and we can still move forward. And before you make any commitment to the final sale, we can make sure that we're comfortable.
Okay.
Excuse me, may I?
Yes, sir.
Stuart, am I correct to say that arbitrage is really, when you mention you sell it at one rate and you bought it at another, the savings that you have in between, if we were in public agency, we would have to pay something for that. But because of this, that's what arbitrage is really about. We are exempt from paying money. If this was a private investor, the arbitrage would have not benefited them.
Yes, I mean, because we're a public investor, there's different rules of arbitrage that apply to us than apply to private investors. Obviously, this is one of those ways that investment firms all over the country and the world have made boatloads of money, is by arbitraging, German marks versus American dollars. We're not doing that. And as I said, you're right, Council Member Richardson, is that we are under different guidelines than the private sector does when it comes to bond issues and the arbitrage. So let me get you, as I said, I know what all the words mean. I know it's a good thing, and I just, could not tell you specifically why we are getting a negative arbitrage of 34, because it's, the positive seems like it's, the negative seems like it's a good number. So I apologize for not having the exact answer.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I had two, and Ray asked them both. So I don't have any more. I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Sure.
I'm also looking at the anticipated rate that we'd be paying, and later in our second agenda, we have money that we're accruing a loan for, or receiving a loan payment for, at a certainly much different rate, and it just seems that it doesn't follow a pattern where we're accepting a rate on a 14-year loan, or an intended rate on a 14-year-old loan that is so much different than what we intend to pay.
Correct.
And of course the money that you get on a loan is different than the money you pay on a loan, but they seem very different.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So the loan that we are making from the city to the successor agency has a provision that you cannot earn more than LAIF on it. And LAIF right now is in the 0.36. What we were doing as
LAIF, would you be explicit?
Sure. LAIF is the Local Agency Investment Fund. It is a money market fund that governments in California can invest in through the state controller's office. So what it is the state has basically a money market fund for governments that we can invest in and withdraw in on a daily basis. So the amount of interest that you can earn when you have a investment that you're trying to draw on daily is a whole lot less. And in most cases right now, if I went out to the regular market for a money market, I would actually be earning zero, as if you notice on some of our investment reports is what we do earn on money market accounts. So what I had done is I said, let me put together for the loan that the city is providing to the successor agency a number that we would consider reasonable. And what I was looking at more was what would we get off of a 2-year treasury note. Part of the issue with the successor agency loan is just that, a lot of the questions that were raised at prior meetings about this loan, about, the ability for the successor agency to in fact pay that loan off. And, those have been questions that have been raised at the council meeting, they've been raised at the oversight board, they have been raised at the county auditor's office, they've been raised at Department of Finance. So I was not looking to create a loan that seemed as if we were taking advantage of the successor agency and the underlying taxing districts. So that's the reason why it's even below the LAIF rate. This is unfortunately having to go out to the whole market, and the question is what is the market willing to loan us money at? And if we are unhappy with the number that we get back, if it doesn't save us enough money, if it doesn't seem to make sense to us, then we will not bring forward the next step. Does that explain the difference between the two?
It does, and I thank you for that. If we go out on the open market and get a rate of, let's say, 4%, and that's what we feel is the best we can do, just like with a home loan, that I would ask if I was refinancing my home, can we refinance without prepayment penalties if we find something better in a year?
You could if you're willing to pay a premium for that. So bondholders don't like to have their bonds called too early. So for instance, right now we are calling bonds from 2012 through 2031 much earlier than anticipated. The bond issue that we have had a 10-year prepayment penalty in it. After 10 years, you don't have a prepayment penalty, which is why we're able to take advantage of this at this point. If we were to ask for a loan, a bond issue that had no prepayment penalty at any given point in time, there would be an additional interest rate that the bondholders would ask us to pay, because they would be expecting that we would actually call it earlier than what, because there would be no reason for us to put that provision in, which is out of the norm, unless we thought we were going to be able to pay it off earlier because we thought we were going to get additional funds in, or we thought interest rates were going to go down. So they try and protect themselves for a period of time, and we protect ourselves after that period of time. So we could do that if you would like, and we can see what that prepayment penalty, that non-prepayment penalty interest difference in interest rates could be, and make that determination to see which is better for us.
Thank you. Of course, I'd like to see the lowest rate we can possibly get and the best deal for Brisbane. So I will rely on your expertise.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Any members of the public that would like to comment on this matter? No. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion and consider approving the refunding plan for the 2002 utility bonds.
Second.
Okay. Are you considering or approving the funding plan for the?
Approving, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Approval to move forward.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not
With the
approving.
caveats that are built in.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is consider authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with ICF International to perform California Environmental Quality Act training for the community and city boards and commissions. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The City Council's long demonstrated a commitment that the city's Baylands planning process be inclusive and afford the community maximum opportunities for constructive and active participation. Along those lines, as the publication of the EIR, draft EIR, approaches, the council has expressed its desire to help the community at large and the city's boards and commissions get educated into the task of reviewing the environmental impact report. And the kind of training components that were requested to be looked at were to include a public education component, explaining the overall EIR process, providing assistance in how to understand and efficiently review a very voluminous technical document as the EIR will be, and provide guidance to the public at large as to how to prepare effective and meaningful comments on the draft EIR and therefore be an effective participant in the EIR review process. Another component is to provide training to the various boards and commissions that are going to have a role in reviewing the document. That'd be the Planning Commission, Open Space and Ecology Committee, as well as Park and Recreation Commission. It was also noted that the BBCAG will be reviewing certain technical elements and expected to be providing comments, so the training was recommended to be extended to them as well. So in February 2012, the council authorized staff to solicit RFPs, or requests for proposals, to perform these services. City received a number of proposals, 5 proposals actually, and an interview panel consisting of the mayor, mayor pro tem, chairman of the Planning Commission, and city staff met to review the 5 proposals we received. It was last week. All 5 firms interviewed were highly qualified, but it was a consensus of the selection panel that ICF provided the best combination of CEQA expertise, facilitation skills, and capacity to prepare educational materials that would best fulfill the city's training goals. Selection panel therefore recommends ICF be selected to perform the requested CEQA training. Based on the dialogue with the panel, the selection panel, staff anticipates that the draft scope of work, which you do have in front of you, may require slight modification to fulfill some of the needs, particularly the Planning Commission, that were raised in the interview process. And so we're expecting there be some minor changes to the scope. With that end, we're recommending that instead of bringing a contract to be executed tonight, that you authorize the city manager to work out those minor scope modifications and authorize him to execute the agreement. There would be may result in some minor cost adjustments to the contract as currently exists, but again, until we negotiate the final scope, we won't know that for sure. In any event, the preliminary budget, or the budget proposal, was $30,000 approximately. It may or may not change slightly based on modifications to the scope. And again, that cost will be borne by Universal Paragon, who's the project developer, as they bear all consultant service costs. So that's staff's recommending the council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with ICF to perform the CEQA training as desired. That would conclude staff's comments. I would point out that Valerie Holcomb of ICF is present this evening and available to answer any questions. That would conclude my comments.
All right. Any questions from staff? Jared?
None at this time.
I just, I want to thank both you and Ray for this kind of a grueling interview process, to go
Devoting 7 hours of our time, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
it was well spent.
Yeah, I think so
totally
too,
well
and just let you know that I appreciate the time and the effort, and also that I understand, our planning commissioner chair, Jamil, was involved. So, and that's good. So you got a wide swath, and I guess it's probably his comments that brought up the modification. Yeah, good. So I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate your hard work on this, along with staffs too. So I think this is really good for the community, and all the commissions and the BBCAG, that people have an opportunity to really get educated and to hopefully make the process go smoother. So
Thank you for that, Clerk. One of the things that was consistent through all of the folks that we interviewed is that they were so impressed with our wanting to educate the community and educate our commissioners and committee members, on the process before diving into the draft EIR. And so, and that was really great feedback to get from them. So, thank you for kind of just bringing that up again, Clark.
You guys did the hard work. We appreciate that. Thank you. I wanted to ask another question. If I have just a question. When do you expect that we would have this community workshop scheduled?
We would hope to be able to schedule events in June. That's contingent upon getting enough lead time to provide adequate notification. That's the goal. Some of the board and commission meetings, we have to work around their schedules and summer schedules, but June would be the best time to roll this out. If we could compress it, that would be great, and have it all done in June.
Right, because a lot of people go for summer vacation after school ends, so that's the sensitivity. And the other thing is, whatever training material that is going to be given to us, I would appreciate if it's available also through internet or at our city's website, that in case if some people cannot attend, they can read that on the cities or whatever.
Absolutely.
All right. Ray, do you want to say something?
Well, I just thanks, Clark, for the good words. But it was a fascinating experience, actually. All of the firms were really highly professional and very competent and very interesting, each in its own way. There were different personalities, and so that was fun, too. Mm-hmm. And I agree with what Cliff said, that they were all very pleased that we were actually taking this step, rather unusual, not unique, but rather unusual. And it should really make the process go much better. And their understanding of, on the one hand, the necessity to convey an appropriate level of knowledge, whereas on the other hand, you have to facilitate in a way which is efficient and effective and maintain some coherence, which can be difficult on occasion. But they all understood that, and we felt that the firm we're recommending had an especially good understanding of all that. And so we were pleased with the response we got. And in fact, I think any of them would have been okay. It was just a question of which one was, would look better to us.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
Was there anything that you wanted to say, Terry, or before we go there?
Sure.
I just wanted the public to know that we weren't reviewing any documents as far as a proposed plan, and that this is to get information so that we could look at any EIR that came before us and know what the CEQA implications were for that, so that it's something that we're not going to be discussing anything specific to a plan, just to learn more about how a plan should be interpreted and what the process is. And with that, I have no other questions.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second Seppi's motion, but before we vote on it, I don't know of too many consultants that like to get out the door without saying something.
Valerie, you want to come on
out? I think she probably drove from Sacramento. I did. Okay.
So you definitely must say something.
Well, actually, I'm one of those consultants who doesn't particularly like to take the stand, but I appreciate the opportunity, and my colleagues and I are very pleased, and we're excited to be selected and to be working with you. And Councilmember O'Connell's remarks in particular about this is to help everybody, not just on your Baylands project in this summer, but throughout the future of whatever other types of EIRs or environmental documents come out related to that project or any other project that you do. We hope that this will be an educational process that will serve everybody for a long time to come. So, thank you very much.
May I mention?
Yes.
Any PowerPoint you make, can you make sure that the narratives are also with it? Sometimes people make PowerPoint and it's just like bullets, but when you leave and if you forgot, if the notes are at the bottom of the PowerPoint,
Sure.
It would be really helpful.
Sure, we can do that. And also, our instructors don't speak from the PowerPoint in the sense that we don't read them. But on the other hand, there's a lot of information on the PowerPoints as well, so that they work both ways to follow along. But we can certainly be sure that there's some text there as well. It's generally a pretty comprehensive package of materials that are provided. So we will work to have that in the way that suits you best.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all. It was good to
Thank you.
Call the question.
Yep. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, the next on the agenda is consider authorizing the mayor to execute a confirmation of loan agreement concerning an enforceable obligation of the redevelopment agency of the city of Brisbane. Staff report, please.
Well, as the council knows, the city has been going through meetings with the Oversight Committee, and it has been carrying on its books for many years a loan that was made by the city to the redevelopment agency to cover the shortfall when some bonds were refinanced some time ago. Under the new law and with the dissolution of redevelopment agencies, there are new restrictions, if not prohibitions, on repayment of debt owed by an agency to a city. In a sense, we've been a bit lucky because we've had, I think, a very understanding oversight committee, oversight board rather. Everyone pretty much acknowledged that this loan cannot be immediately repaid, but the oversight board did agree that it could be shown as an existing obligation. And if there's a change in state law or if there's some court decision or other circumstance that would allow some repayment in the future, at least we're preserving the existence of this indebtedness. Mm-hmm. Unlike some other agencies who at the last minute did all sorts of things in terms of trying to create transfers of assets and create new obligations, and there was just a front page article about that, at least in the San Jose Mercury that I get, about how all kinds of transactions were put together at the last minute that the state is now attempting to unwind. This is an obligation that we've carried on our books consistently. It's been reported to the state and on our financial reports consistently and has never been questioned. It does represent a real debt. What the Oversight Board recommended was that, well, let me back up and say, well, it was carried on our books. There was never a promissory note or a loan agreement or anything of that kind. It was documented through our financial records, which at the time is how everyone handled these types of transactions. At the suggestion of the Oversight Board, they indicated it would probably be a good idea to have a loan agreement, which would simply serve as further documentation of this existing indebtedness. It becomes a rather strange-looking document because you say, okay, it's a loan agreement between who and who? Well, it's between the City of Brisbane and the successor agency. Well, who's the successor agency? It's the City of Brisbane, acting in its capacity as the successor agency. So if you look at the actual document, it looks a little strange because it's like you're schizophrenic and you're making an agreement with yourself, and nevertheless, that's exactly what's going on here. It's the city as a municipal corporation entering into a loan agreement with the successor agency to the redevelopment agency, which happens to be the city acting in that capacity. And all this agreement does is to document the existence of this indebtedness. Stuart has already explained the rationale for how it was determined to be repaid. He was using less than the LAIF rate and spread out over a period of time. And again, the ability to actually make that payment is going to be dependent upon some changes in the state law, and the only function this agreement is serving right now is to document the existence of the indebtedness, and hopefully it will then serve as a basis for repayment at a future date. The draft agreement was already presented to the Oversight Board and was approved by the Board, subject to approval by the city as the municipal corporation and by the successor agency. And that is the action that's before you tonight in both capacities. And in order to avoid confusion that we've run into in the past, we're now adopting the practice of separate agendas for each agency, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you'll find the agreement on your agenda as the City Council, and it's on the agenda of the successor agency. It's the same agreement, and you're just approving a signature on both sides of the page, so to speak. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You know, Hal, were you at the oversight?
Yes, I was.
So, and I know you were too, right? Was there anyone on that committee that objected to this?
No. As a matter of fact, the suggestion came from the community college district representative, and we were very pleased at the willingness to acknowledge, this indebtedness. I think part of
strongly supported by the representative of school districts.
Yeah. Nice. I think part of it, because I've heard some real horror stories from other places, and I think the main reason is that throughout its existence, Brisbane has never done anything funny with the agency. All of the transactions have been legitimate transactions. We've acquired property for legitimate purposes, and it's all been consistent with the redevelopment law. So if you go, and Stuart has been very conservative, shall we say, in listing out the enforceable obligations. They're all legitimate, documented obligations that have appeared on the agency or the city's financial statements. So I think the Oversight Board recognized that, they're dealing with legitimate debt here. The city acted in good faith. It advanced money to the agency for the purpose of saving money. It was to facilitate the refinancing of bonds, which at that point, because under the market we could only generate a certain amount from the sale of the replacement bonds, the city stepped forward to advance the difference to pay off the old bonds. The end result was a substantial reduction in the interest rate and an overall savings of money to both the agency and the city. So it made sound. It was like what we have now. The market, was favorable to a refinancing, and that's exactly what we did. The market, though, would not allow that the total amount of the indebtedness be refinanced, so the city had to make up the difference. It's like you go to repay a loan on your home, and you might have had a 90% loan, but now the bank is saying, I'm only going to give you an 80% loan to value ratio, and you got to pony up the difference to get the savings in the interest rate. So essentially that's what happened, and I think the board recognized that. Like I said, we've been reporting it for years, literally, on our financial statements. So there was no funny business going on here. It's a legitimate debt, and all we're doing is documenting it. And hopefully at some future day we'll be able to repay it.
All right. Any questions from...
No good deed goes unpunished, I guess.
That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because throughout it, some of the things that we've done with the low and moderate income housing, it's the state legislature enacted that, and now they enacted the disbandment of RDAs, and we're like really caught in the middle of it. It just, is goofy. This whole thing is goofy, man, and I'm glad to see that the Oversight Committee is showing good sense and compassion towards towards our situation. So
Interesting, the representative from community college, as you mentioned, horror stories. It is really, I think it's a miracle for us to have such a success with representative from the college, because the rest of the county, they really are having struggle with that individual.
Well, we've got the finance person, and the ones who are having struggle have a different representative.
Oh.
And this person, I think, has a really good understanding of the financial end of all of this.
Very good.
She and Stuart can talk, and the rest
Right.
of us.
Yeah,
No, I served with her. I served with her on the community college foundation boards.
Right, cool.
So,
Know each other.
So while the oversight board is leaning towards understanding this loan and the reason for it and the documentation, we still are unsure if this will be approved as part of the overall debt package, and so this could be just a paper loan. This may never be a debt that is actually repaid. Correct?
Correct. I mean, this is an issue that the state legislature is working through. I have no clue. Senator Yee was here at the last council meeting talking about how a lot of the legislation dealing with the cleanup bills is being held, I don't know if the word hostage is the right word, but held up, waiting a budget deal this year. Department of Finance was actually, they have said that this is not something that, based on current state law, should be put on our EOPS for payment. And what I told the person from the Department of Finance is that we're not putting it on the EOPS. The Oversight Board had asked us to leave it on the ROPS without providing a date for funding, because it is a recognized obligation, but under current state law cannot be repaid. So if the state law changes, it would be on our recognized obligation payment schedule, so that way it can be repaid if and when state law changes. So you are absolutely correct.
Thank you.
and it's hold your breath on that one.
All right.
Do you want to ask?
Yes.
I wanted to add a couple of things to follow up Terry's point. The legislation that may or may not help us probably will not go very far until the May revision of the budget. And I'm sure we all get the stuff from the League of California Cities, and according to them, it's now been scheduled in it's passed the Assembly, but the bill that's key to us has been scheduled in 2 committees in the Senate for, I think, next week. So that's the first breath of life in the Senate, and we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of concern, particularly, I think, my guess is, if we're lucky, they will recognize the kind of loans that we're talking about here. I mean, this was for refinancing of a redevelopment project, classic style, the marina, and associated infrastructure. The part that's going to be questionable, which Clark was referring to, is the whole affordable housing money. And that's a different pot, and that's a different set of obligations. And so I would say that in terms of getting through the legislature, so far as how it's going to affect the state's bottom line, the whole housing part is probably more problematic. If there's anybody sensible, they would see that the kind of thing that this marina financing recognizes is really a solid obligation. That doesn't mean they'll see it, but certainly it has a much stronger standing and a less fiscal impact than the whole affording housable part. We'll see. The other thing is, of course, if the legislature doesn't get its act together and doesn't change the law, it is vulnerable. But then almost for sure, a whole lot of cities in the state are going to be in the same boat. So there's going to be a class suit. And we'll see where that goes and how long it takes. But this will be a long time playing out, and it might very well be that it'll take us quite a while to know what the final result is.
Thanks for that, Ray.
All right. Any other questions for staff? All right. Entertain them. Well, sorry. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I've sat through all but two of the oversight panel. Yeah, I don't want to say successor committee. It gets me confused. Sorry. And these were funds that were not approved by the state, and it was anyway. If the city is owed money, it should be repaid. However, when I look at this obligation of $594 a year, I wonder where's the money going to come from? And the whole reason redevelopment agencies are being disbanded is because of the abuse of the tax money that should be going to schools and other community needs. So I'm wondering, by you saying that this money is due to the city, isn't this the same abuse of the public funds that should be going to the libraries and schools? The funds that are owed right now are because the city guaranteed profits to the developer, and the development hasn't been sustainable since its inception. So how is it going to be sustainable? Where is this money going to come from? In 2001, you used general fund money because the redevelopment agency has paid so much, such a great portion of salaries, that the city was able to keep some money in its general fund and have it available. So in a sense, to me, the money that you used from the general fund was still ultimately, in a very circuitous way, comes from the redevelopment agency. So the one question I have is, are we done with guaranteeing investment profits to the developers, or will this happen again? Are there some agreements out there that we're not aware of that will surface again later, that will still be an obligation to the city? So please inform the public whose obligation this is. I believe that the developers should pay proportionally because it's the land that they are under contract or agreements or whatever you want to call it with the city. And so why do I as a taxpayer have to wonder if the roads are going to get done because you're repaying an obligation where you had promised a developer profit? Until now, there's been a redevelopment agency to protect the public from the liability of defaulted loans. This repayment will have to come from some place. It will either be a tax to the public, reduced services in our schools or libraries or here in the city, increased fees, or new taxes, or all of the above. So, in a sense, you're obligating me as a taxpayer my money right now, and I want to vote on it. I want to have a vote as to whether the citizen should be continued to be indebted toward redevelopment issues. And if you do get the money, because the whole I'm sorry, when you put this on your obligation payment, you're asking the state to pay this off. So this isn't it's a maybe because the state may say no, but once it's on our obligations, the citizens are going to pay for it. And if we're going to pay for it, I am sick and tired of coming to these city meetings and you telling us that we don't have any money for our parks, that we don't have any money for, that whatever we do out at the marina will eventually will come to some understanding. If you're going to receive that $2.2 million in funds from us the taxpayers, you get your tails out there and put it into the marina. That's where that money belongs. It belongs on improving the marina. And during this whole process of the so-called designing of the public open space out at the marina, I was in contact with the Trust for Public Land. And I had asked them if they could help us design the community's park, open space, out at the marina. And he said that the city has to ask. The person that I spoke with was Brendan Moriarty. And he said that's exactly what Trust for Public Land does. It helps cities to design their parks for their citizens and design their open space. And that is something Trust for Public Land does. So we have the beauty of the citizens coming together, finding the funding, and producing a children's play park. The exact same scenario that we're all applauding tonight should be what we do on the marina. That we utilize the resources that are out there. Instead of sitting back saying, let's wait for the developers to come up with something. Let us be in the driver's seat, and if I'm paying part of this $2.2 million, I want to see something happen out at the marina. And I believe other people would too. I'm a little disturbed that, I guess in March, the way that the city decided to inform the public of the loss of the redevelopment agency was that we won't be able to solve some of the community problems and that projects will be much harder to finance going forward. Right now, you're in the driver's seat, you're considering refinancing. I find this upsetting that you would kind of say to the public, just forget about it, we're not going to have any money, rather than we know what to do to make this town work and to make this town livable and to make this the best town in the world, and we're going for it. And if we get this $2.2 million, we're going to improve the marina. We're not going to sit back and wait. That's what I would like to hear, not this trash about how we're just not going to it's just not going to happen here because the redevelopment agencies have gone. What will happen is when these obligations are paid, there should be more money coming back into the system so that the schools and the community colleges and the libraries get the money that's due them. And I find this an affront to the process because I believe that on one hand, you say that we can't do anything, but on the other hand, you're refinancing $2.2 million for the marina. So I would hope that this is more than an exercise, that this is the opportunity to do something better for our town. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dana. Stuart, there's one thing I just wanted to ask you that was brought up. So if we were to receive payment on those loans that we've made to the RDA, that money would go into the general fund, and the council then would be able to use that money at its discretion?
Well, this money would actually go into the Parks and Recreation Marina Fund.
Okay.
So it would be used for Parks and Recreation and marina purposes. Probably the most significant marina purpose that it would be used for is the future dredging of the marina, which is probably going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years. Talking to Ted.
All right. Thank you.
Well, there was a lot of stuff
Yeah.
Dana brought up, and I guess we need some clarity on it, and I'm not sure exactly where to start. Maybe from the beginning. Okay, how's this going to work? It's like her question: where's the money going to come from, and who's it coming? And that type of thing. So.
Okay. So this is money that would have gone to the redevelopment agency. So it's tax increment coming off of Sierra Point and the Baylands. It would have been used for redevelopment purposes. State law no longer allows us to use it for redevelopment purposes. So any money that we are not using to repay outstanding debt, to pay for ongoing expenses of the housing, land doesn't go towards paying for the successor agency board council or for staff time to support the successor agency. Any money that would be left over would go to the underlying taxing districts. So it's coming from tax increment money that none of the underlying taxing districts had anticipated receiving until the end of the redevelopment agency. State law allows them to get a portion of that sooner.
And the sunset date on that redevelopment agency was 2028, 2032, somewhere?
I hear 32 and 36. There was a couple of things that allowed us to extend it in the past, a couple of state laws.
I guess that was probably part of the problem is they can just keep extending RDAs.
Right. And it's what happened to extend the RDA was state law took money from the RDAs, recognizing that by taking money from the RDAs to balance the state budget, they were putting the RDAs at a disadvantage in repaying all of their outstanding debt. They allowed the RDAs to extend by a year or 2 years each time they did this to ensure that debt was going to be repaid.
And so just to clarify, this money came out of the general fund reserve that was used for the marina.
Well, this money came out of the marinas and Park and Recreation Marina Reserve.
Right.
That would have been used for marina projects. Instead, it was used to finish paying off a bond issue which allowed the redevelopment agency to get out from a very difficult situation. The redevelopment agency was increasing the amount of money it owed to MetLife every year at an interest rate that was above market rate at that time. So we were able to find a much more favorable interest rate so we could be able to afford to ensure that we could refinance the existing bonds and refinance MetLife to pay them off. And in fact, I believe, having not quite been here, coming in right after that period of time, but reading the bond documents, MetLife actually took a discount of what we owed them in order for them to be assured that they were going to get paid off.
Right, I remember that. And so what was the annual savings on doing that whole thing? Do you know off the top of your head?
I do not have to research that, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. That'd be interesting to know. Some of the stuff I'm not sure about the guaranteeing profits to the developer. I've never.
I mean, this bond issue, the original bond was to cover the cost of the marina.
Right.
So it wasn't it was not a payment to the developer. You might be able to make a argument that by having the marina, the value of the land was higher, but as the value of the land would go up, so would the assessed value of the land, which would then allow the redevelopment agency to take, to earn extra revenue.
Property taxes.
Yes, sorry.
I did like your idea, Dana, about the trust for public land, about helping with the design. I guess that's a gratuitous thing, or is it a paid thing? Would you know about that?
I wouldn't know. I'd have to check with them to see how they do it.
How they do it,
Yeah, that would be good to investigate. I wrote it down, so.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. All right. Any?
Yeah. Well, just want to express how I understand it, and which is different than how Dana understands it, because it's my understanding that if this marina refinancing loan were to be repaid, it would be repaid from tax increment funds, essentially from Sierra Point.
Correct.
So it would not come from taxpayers in town.
It would not come from, correct, it would not come from taxpayers in town.
Okay. So that was one thing that was a little different in my understanding than what Dana had said. And it's also my understanding that if we're not going to get that loan repaid, from the general fund, that basically it then would be distributed to all the pass-through agencies, which would mean that the amount that would come back to the city would be our share of that, which is, I don't know, much smaller than $2.5 million, because the rest would go to this, the school districts and the county and so forth.
We would get approximately 20% of it.
Yeah. So then that would really cut back our capacity to offer services to citizens as a city. Now, those other entities would then have a little bit more money. Now, in the past, the whole point of what the state did with the redevelopment agencies was basically to backstop that money and made the school districts and others whole. But now the state's in financial trouble. They don't want to do that anymore. So they want to get the money from the local level because they can't raise it at the state level. That's kind of how I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I got it right?
That is correct. I mean, those cities which are basic aid cities were not impacted by redevelopment agencies. The cities that were revenue limited, or do I have it backwards, Clay? Basic aid.
Basic aid is...
Seppi probably knows better than which I do.
When when the property taxes that you collect exceeds your revenue limit,
right,
they keep that extra. On the top of that, they get $120 per kid. That's why they like it when a school district goes into basic aid, because you make the property tax money and you get additional $120 per kid, and you're not subject to deficit.
Right.
So school districts which are basic aid cities, you could argue, may be impacted by redevelopment agencies and tax increment financing. However, one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, if it wasn't for redevelopment agencies, would those areas have built? So one of the things that our redevelopment agency did was build the on and off ramps for Sierra Point. The question would be, is if there was no on and off ramps for Sierra Point, could development have happened there? And if it could have happened, at what cost and at what value would those properties have been? So, there is a long argument. There's a number of assumptions and premises that need to go into the financial analysis as to the benefits and disadvantages. So one of the things that has happened is that there are 2 hotels out there. Those 2 hotels produce about $1.5 million in transient occupancy tax for the city. If the city was not able to have that $1.5 million in transient occupancy tax, would we be able to support the school districts in the way that we support them today? Would the money that we are supporting the school districts through the joint powers agreements, through direct aid to the schools, Is that dollar amount more or less than they could have gotten when they were basic aid? The Jefferson Union High School District is not a basic aid district. The Community College District might be a basic aid district this year. So it would take a much longer financial analysis than I have the ability to do in my head tonight to really go through those kinds of, that decision tree. Because even during the times that the Brisbane Elementary School District was not basic aid, back in the times that they were revenue limited, the city was still able to provide support to them because of the revenue it was receiving from the redevelopment area. So it's a much harder question than I can respond to immediately. And I wish it was easier, because that would just make me seem a lot smarter, but I'm not able to do that.
All right, any other questions for staff? Discussion amongst the council?
I have one point in reference to basically what this does is confirm what has been done by just bringing the record together. But there was one item which the oversight panel asked for, which is not a part of the packet. I don't know really whether the rest of the council wants to see it or not, but just to bring it up, we also solicited and received a letter from the bond counsel, who was responsible for organizing this complicated transaction. And that, of course, naturally supports the city's point of view as to the indebtedness that was actually incurred. So that would add to this packet. And I guess my only question is, should it be incorporated in this, or just by reference, or what?
I don't think so. It's really not necessary for the purposes of the agreement.
Okay.
It simply is confirming what, that the indebtedness exists.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, do I have a motion?
Yep. Go ahead, sir. You do it. I can.
I was hoping Ray was going to make the motion.
Yeah, okay. I'll be happy to make the motion that we authorize the mayor to execute a confirmation of a loan agreement concerning the enforceable obligation related to marina refinancing.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is staff reports. What?
I have no comments under this item. I do have a couple of comments that I do want to input under your meeting schedule, which is on the next block of items.
Okay. All right. So next is Mayor Council Matters Subcommittee report.
We had I believe we reported it at our last meeting, but we met at Jackie Spears' office, our congresswoman, on April 23rd. It was one of the most productive meetings that we've had in years. And even at the roundtable meeting on the last Wednesday, they were there. They made a presentation, and the way they spoke, it just like they built it up really that we're going to see some changes. But summer is going to be very difficult because United has added additional flights, and they're doing some work on the runway. And I've noticed that there's some flights that are coming from west toward east, which is very unusual, and it's creating some chaos with people. One of the things that we'd like to, again, continually encourage is to make calls, because one of the things that they keep talking at any of the meetings that we've had is historically this has been the pattern in Brisbane, and they keep relying. And if we don't call and complain, I think this history would come to bite us for the rest of our lives. However, I was very optimistic from the meeting that we had. It looks like that we might see some changes for the first time ever. Because of Brisbane, they're going to be training all the FAA controllers to be aware of the community, and that they have never trained them. They have actually starting that, which that's really might not make a big deal, much of a difference, but for them to know what Brisbane is all about, our shape or our physical location might help us. So I'd like to encourage everybody to make calls. At the same time, I'm sure every one of you have noticed some marketable changes in the last few days, except that occasionally you see something that is really crazy. Sometimes there are freight planes that are flying like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Those are generally freight, like from FedEx and so forth, and I don't think they can do anything about it. But I believe, being such a I somehow, sometimes I don't trust them, and I keep thinking that because of the next gen flights, big planes are coming. They are making some changes really in the preparation for the big planes that are going to be hitting. But in the meantime, I'm very grateful for what I see, and I really like to encourage people to call. And I officially like to thank all the people that have been very involved with the noise. They do a lot of work, analysis. They come to the meeting, and I'm so proud of them. And thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you for the update, Seppi.
Is there a chance, I mean, I know we have the number and we put it in our newsletters, and maybe if we have the number available, maybe we can give it to our video operator and just put it up on the screen for our viewers. I'm not sure how many people are viewing right now, but I think it would be handy if they might be able to jot it down. And yeah, there's, I mean, a significant difference. A couple weeks ago, I was out on the bay. I just went out for a quick sail, and I noticed that the planes were flying directly overhead, and I was able to have a normal conversation.
Right.
And they were a lot lower elevation than
Right.
what they fly over Brisbane. And Brisbane being in a bowl really exacerbates that sound.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Terry was mentioning tonight, if you want to talk about it, that one of our residents called the airport and made a complaint about noise and got a personal call. If you want to elaborate on that, but it's not.
Well, our residents did call and told me that they had gotten a call back where they actually went into depth about the flights and that they were doing either a runway maintenance or runway expansion that was causing them to fly a different pattern than normal, which is what has been changing the patterns lately, and that they expected the construction to take a couple of years. Now, I can't confirm this. This was hearsay on my part, but it is sort of held up by what Seppi is saying about doing some maintenance and causing some delays. But I think that the person who called wasn't a regular caller, and because the flights have been coming from a different direction, they live a block down the street, but they're hearing different noises than they had in the past. So whatever small changes are made can really affect different people. And so it's really important that if it does affect you when they change a pattern, that we do make the phone calls. I think it might be nice if when we have the blue screen on Channel 27 when we're just doing announcements with music, we should do a blue screen with the airport noise, who to call, what's the phone number, how that we can actually make an impact. So I think it's a good thing to put as one of our slides up there.
Utilize, yeah.
Channel 27.
Yeah, Seppi, some of the members of the community that have been very involved with the airport, with the airplane noise, they have their Blackberries or their smartphones, and when a plane goes over and it's disruptive, they pull out their device and they have an app, and they just go and they send it off, and So how can we inform the community to be able to get that app to because that would be a lot easier for folks to acknowledge when a plane is flying too close to Brisbane.
Right. Right now I have my app, and it's really easy. I believe Caroline did put this instruction on the city's website.
It's SFO. It's sfonoise.com is our local citizen group.
Right. SFO Noise at flysfo.com.
For the email address.
Yes.
We do advertise it in the Star.
Okay.
Right.
So, and we'll continue to put that information
Right.
on our website. I just want to, Terry did talk to me last week about this issue on the maintenance, and it is maintenance, not construction. What I was told by Bert Ganung last Wednesday was that it was maintenance that was happening on 2 different weekends, and it should be done now, so that issue should be over with. That the weather conditions can sometimes direct the flights to come from that westerly, easterly direction, but it should no longer be a matter of the construction. Now, he also indicated to me that they had information about this on the website, and we haven't yet located that, so we've got an email in to Bert to get the information, because what I'd like to do is be able to post that, but I wanted to actually do it as a link so that we have the direct information from the airport.
Well, that would be interesting and would also be a reason why I said it was hearsay. If you were told 2 weeks and a resident was told 2 years. Now, that's the kind of misinformation that can perpetuate itself, and which is why I only brought it up as a comment to you, because so much with the noise issue, you get a different answer when you talk to different people. And so I think the more information we can get out there and get a firm understanding on, and the work that Councilmember Richardson's doing with the Noise Committee, I think is really important to hold their feet to the fire, because that's what we need to do. We need to keep on them to keep them aware of us. And the more that the residents call and the more we stir up the pot, the better it may end up being for us over the long term.
Right.
One of the things I noticed with Seppi, with my observation on the planes is all of them made the turn at I think it's turned to 4 Mile Point or something like that.
Yes.
They all made that turn, and some of them would go through the gap or the saddle.
Yes.
But the majority of them just kept turning and would fly right over the middle of Brisbane, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not doing what they're supposed to do, and they're taking a shortcut, I guess, so to speak. And
they get up to 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
When we are done, hopefully fighting and coming with some solution, I really like to invite and officially recognize about 5 or 6 of our citizens that they have really done remarkable job in analyzing flights, putting on Google, and it really embarrasses. They embarrass in some ways the airport noise people, because when we went with Jackie, these are community members, truly incredible. They proved to Jackie that there is a community problem. A lot of people that go, plane goes over my house. These people came with facts, hours. I was so proud of them that they've done a remarkable job, and I officially like to one day. But remember, just for tonight, we're going to have some hard time during summer from what I understand. But I think there might be some light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's hope so. All right. Any other subcommittee meetings? Clark, you and I had the meeting with the economic one.
That's going to refer to item B.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah. And the subcommittee meeting Ray and I had was dealt with earlier on the
Airpath Park
playground equipment.
Yeah. Okay.
CCAG meeting coming up Thursday.
Any subcommittee report? Others? Okay.
It's open on the agenda.
Gotcha. All right. So refer sustainability goals for the Baylands to commissions and committees. Do you want to talk about that at all, Clay? Or Stuart?
This has been a project that has been going on for a couple of years now. Since January of 2009, the council created a committee that consisted of 3 members at that time, a council member, a member of the Open Space and Ecology Committee, and a member of the Planning Commission. Their goal was to come up with some guidelines for the Baylands development as it relates to sustainability, which is different from the EIR process, which is looking at the impacts on the environment. Sustainability is a much broader and all-encompassing term. They had met for a while. They determined that having a person from the Parks and Recreation Commission there would be useful, because Parks and Recreation is also impacted by sustainability issues. The committee looked at a number of different metrics for determining sustainability, and they looked at different definitions of sustainability. The committee then chose to look at One Planet Living as a format for sustainability issues on the Baylands. If you remember, the One Planet Living those issues were presented at the Brisbane University a number of years ago. It has also been used up in Sonoma Mountain Village as far as how do you create a sustainable community. It's also being used by the London Olympics to certify its sustainability. So it's got very wide range and worldwide recognition. The city then hired a consultant to work with the committee. His name was Jeff Cyphers. He's worked with One Planet projects previously, most notably the Sonoma Mountain Village project. Working with Jeff, that committee developed the guidelines that you see before you tonight. We have provided those the guidelines to the developer as well at this point. The next step in the process, as the committee saw, was to have the Planning Commission, the Parks and Recreation Committee, and the Open Space and Ecology Committee look at those guidelines, see if there was something missing from there, seeing if there was other ideas that needed to be incorporated. They would then bring back their suggestions to the City Council at a future meeting. My hope would be probably sometime in July, so that way the committees can have this thing finished prior to the EIR process that they need to go through. Then the council would look at it and take the suggestions from the underlying commissions and committees, make any other changes it would like to the document, and then give it back to the committee so it could start developing the action plan. So once the action plan is developed, my impression is that we'd go through the process again, and then after there you then come up with measurable goals. So there's still some ways to go in this. So I wouldn't say we're at the first step in the process, but we are not anywhere near the end of the process. There's still plenty of time for the council to comment on it, and there is, this is where we start having that public process where the public can start reviewing it for themselves and start seeing what are the ideas of sustainability. I will say that the committee members worked very hard on this. They looked at projects throughout the country, throughout the world, and really looked to see what makes projects sustainable and how can we incorporate the best of the best in our document. The anticipation is that not all of this would be part of the EIR, whatever comes out of it. There would probably be some aspects of it that may go into a future development and disposition agreement with the developer, because there are some things that are not strictly tied to the environment, but more towards the way of how do you do business and how do you really interact in the world. And those cannot be put into an EIR, but are much more of a contract agreement, which is what the DDA is. That was my short summary, because
Yeah.
it took hours and hours to get through here.
Months.
Months.
We do need to extend the time.
A motion to extend the time to 11.
I would ask that we take a break before we have another meeting after this, so that we have time to discuss this if we need to. I think that we should take a 5-minute break.
Meeting
Okay.
after.
Yeah. Let's just extend the time, and then we'll take the 5-minute break.
Okay.
Motion to extend the time to 11 p.m. Just the meeting after should be just kind of reflective of what we've already done, right? Am I correct there? It should be pretty quick.
It may be.
But if you're working under pressure, let's take a break.
I think that I've made it clear that in the past that I would like to take a break. I think that we all will have fresher minds if we do take a break.
Yeah. No, you're right. We did talk about that. Let's take that 5-minute break.
Thank you.
we were talking about the sustainability document for the Baylands. And Terry, you had something that you wanted to? No. No. Okay. So, is there any, you guys want to have some discussion in regards to the process that Stuart laid out, how it will eventually go before?
Yeah, our committees and commissions, and so, no, I think it's great. I reviewed the document and, put in a few things, but nothing really substantive, but, no, it's quite a piece of work. Very impressive. So, look forward to the feedback from the commissions, and I don't think we need to do a motion for that.
No, it's basically a referral, am I correct?
Right.
I mean, you could always move a referral if you want, but
yeah.
Probably not necessary, whatever you want.
So, did you want to brief the council on our meeting with Jonathan?
Well, yeah, I mean, Stuart.
So I take it the consensus is we follow the process that was outlined by Stuart, and
yeah,
and we'll get feedback back from the commissions and committees.
Right.
Right?
And as Stuart, indicated, we met with the representatives of UPC to kind of get their initial reaction to it, and there were a few items that were eyebrow raisers for them, but for the most part, I thought they were quite receptive. So. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, well, we asked him to actually put his questions, concerns, thoughts in writing to us, so that when the council considers this, they'll have that also. And, I think he raised some legitimate issues that the council's going to need to consider and wrestle with.
Yeah. There were more of the you shall do this, and he had the issues with those rather than more of because the document is a goal-oriented thing. So you're looking at setting these goals, but then you're saying you should do these things, and so I think it was more clarifying language. But like Clark said, it was a nice surprise to know that he was open to the items that are in the document.
And I think it was very purposeful for the committee to develop the document without having the developer be part of that. What Jeff Cyphers told us, most organizations would have had the developer at the table in developing the document. But the committee was was concerned to make sure that it was a Brisbane document and not influenced by the developer prior to the step happening. So I think that worked very well for the committee, and I think it will work well for Brisbane in the future.
Yes, I agree with that.
Again, we showed independence. Spirit of independence.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
On to the next step, right?
Thank you, Ray. Okay, so review proposed city council meeting schedule. So Clay, you wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, just a couple of items. First one, the easy one, just to let everybody know that we do have scheduled a subcommittee meeting of the liaison to the Planning Commission to discuss the issue of the size of the Planning Commission, amongst other issues. We're going to be doing that on May 24th, and that's, of course, Mayor Lentz and Councilman Williamson. Just letting you know that. The other item is on the budget. Stuart's working feverishly to get the documents together, but we don't believe that we're going to be able to get them to you in time for the 14th. Matter of fact, that really hasn't been our schedule. We're aiming for the 21st. So we're thinking at this point that the 14th would probably be premature for a meeting, and that the 21st would be better. The council will have all the documents, and then would be able to go through the revenues and then start into the department budget deliberations. Not necessarily in lieu of that, but in maybe to enhance the process. I thought it might be useful if we had a series of opportunities for the council members to come out to the marina and also to the pool to kind of eyeball some of the maintenance issues and some of the concerns, some of which we've talked about at the council level, some of which has been brought forward by staff. And if that's acceptable to people, then I'll have Wendy try to set up meetings, and Ted and I will be involved with going through some of that with you.
Are we talking about a council field trip?
No, it'd be I guess a field trip, but not as a full council, just
individualistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could do 2 at a time, obviously, but not
Okay.
more than 2.
All right.
But I think it would help.
necessarily on May 14th.
What's that?
You're not discussing the May 14th.
No. We'll schedule whatever times work for you individually.
So if the budget is not going to be ready on May 14th, are you proposing to cancel that
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, I am.
We have a 6:30 open space and ecology interview, so we're still going to keep that.
Yes, yes. To be clear, you'd still do your interviews, but you would not have a budget meeting.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you?
What if we can move it to the 21st?
That's what I was
You
going
want
to
to do that on the
suggest.
21st too?
Yes.
All right. We can do that.
You mean you want a day off?
Yeah. I can appreciate that.
Okay, so we're going to cancel the 14. I wanted to ask a question. We have a meeting on May 29th. It says department review. Somehow on my calendar I put 6 p.m. Lions. Do you know what that is? Do we have a...
I believe that might be their scholarship award.
It's a scholarship dinner, yeah. Right. I think it's later than that, though. If I recall, at least what information I had, there was a conflict, so...
Yeah, I think they usually do their meetings at 7:30.
Yeah. Right.
7 or 7:30.
Okay, that's... So we can't do that.
Right. We have a conflict.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so May 7th, 21st, 29th, June 4th, June 11th, 18th, and July 23rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Back to oral communications, sir. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
That says it all. All right, so make a motion to adjourn to the May 21st meeting, then, Clyde?
No, we got the successor agent.
Successor
agent.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Okay, to the next,
We adjourned this meeting, but then we
yeah.
and immediately go into another meeting.
Okay.
I made a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So now we have the successor agency meeting. Staff report, please.
We'll call the order first.
Oh, okay. All right. Roll call.
Please note for the record, all council members are present.
Okay. Adoption of agenda.
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, can we just go right into it? Or do I have to go through all the other stuff too?
Motion to authorize the mayor to execute a confirmation loan agreement concerning an enforceable obligation of the RDA redevelopment agency.
I think it's important to say read the marina refinancing.
I'm just reading on the headline.
Yeah, I know, but it's a very specific
earlier
one.
conversation. That's probably a good thing to put.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
A motion to adopt a recognized obligation payment schedule for the period of July 1st through December 31st.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before you do that,
Okay.
when we printed off this spreadsheet, a line item did not print. And the line that did not print was the successor agency administrative budget.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. It's actually line number 11.
Right.
And unfortunately, I set the print to only print through line number 10, and I apologize for this. Actually, according to state law, we're allowed $250,000 as a minimum for the successor agency. The way that cash flow works is we would not actually be able to divide that 250 by 12 and get an equal amount every month, because we get less money as through the RPTTF, the trust fund. I don't remember what RPP stands for, but through the trust fund, we will get less money for the July through December time period than we will get for the January through June time period. So what we're going to do in order to be able to take full advantage of the $250,000 that is minimally allowed to us by state law, we will create a schedule that will have July through December being a little bit less than the amount of money that we would anticipate receiving January through June. And it's not very much less, but I think we would be short, I think it's about $23,000 if we try to split it 50-50. So the first half of the year will have $23,000 less than 125, so it'll be 102, and the second half of the year will be 23,000 more than 125, so it'll be 148. And we're going to do that in order for us to be able to take full advantage of what the state law allows us the ability to do. So with that change to the recognized obligation payment schedule, I would recommend approval from a staff perspective.
My motion includes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we have
Motion to adjourn.
to May 21st. Right,
Yep.
Second?
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I feel like I'm going to the same hooky yet.